Hey, what's going on, dude?
Hey, I heard you're finally ready to join the Minecraft server, dude.
Finally ready to join the Minecraft server? What you
Yeah,
mean?
I'm just fucking with you.
I
Um,
don't know.
what's up, dude? How you doing?
I'm doing great. I think my voice is a little. I lost my voice because I was screaming at propagandists last night, all night. As I'm sure, I think you saw some of it.
Yikes.
Yeah, we watched the
Uh,
whole thing, huh?
oh, you did? Oh,
Yeah.
damn! You watched the whole thing? Well, first of all, I'm honored. I'm glad that you took the time out and debate prepped it. I heard that you didn't like a lot of my points, or you didn't like all of it.
No, I mean, I think most of your points were pretty good. It's more just like communicating, propaganda effectively, I guess.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's so. I mean, obviously, it's really like the main points that I like the main issues that I had
Mm-hmm.
with Charlie were, um, outright lying about certain information every now and then gish galloping nonstop, and throwing up completely unrelated statistics, bringing up how great the American economy is, and every single time I turned around and was like, this has nothing to do with the point I'm making, he would then move the goalpost to a completely different perspective. He would just run away from answering questions every time I asked him pointed questions. It was just basically, first of all, the room was full of Trump supporters, as I'm sure you gathered from the applause. Every single time, Charlie would just go back to the same talking points over and over again, which were his tweets essentially, which could easily be summarized as capitalism good, socialism bad, without necessarily like. Even though I would break down exactly the differences and say, like, look, this is a social democracy. I'm not advocating for full socialism. There are actually, I don't think full socialism has ever been completely mastered. There are different variants and whatever. It didn't matter because he kept ignoring my points and he just kept saying his stuff over and over and over again. So it was like one side trying to have a conversation while the other side was just there to disseminate misinformation to these hordes of hogs sitting in the crowd, fucking clapping like Pavlovian dogs, dude. Every single time they were like, "Yeah, fuck unions." They were booing me because of unions.
Yeah, I
Like,
mean, that's sounds like a conservative talking point. Um,
yeah.
I mean, like, so you've like correctly identified kind of like the primary strategies, and they're very, very hard. Keep in mind, first of all, that anything I say, like, trust me, of all the people in the world, I acknowledge that this is way fucking harder to deal with in a live format than to be sitting on the sidelines watching. It's very easy for me to pick out problems when I'm
No,
just
but it's
watching,
good.
and I don't. Yeah, so keep in mind if I say anything, like, obviously, I totally recognize that doing this in a live format, like, I watch my debates sometimes, and be like, oh fuck, like, why didn't I fucking catch that? Like, it's so obvious, it's so dumb.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Like I watch your debates all the time, and you know, there's certainly on the spot. There's certainly elements that you like can't get to, and the same happened with me as well.
Yeah.
And by the way, no, like be as brutal as you want because I want constructive criticism, especially because I'm going to be debating if Charlie doesn't back out after this. I'm going to be debating him in Dallas and also in Mesa
Hmm.
and in Denver in November during the midterms, after the midterms. So
Sure.
I'm really excited because I need to do a lot more of these debates. Like this is something that I haven't ever done before. The first time I ever did a debate was literally in front of a live audience last year at Politicon with Charlie,
Hmm.
and I didn't do a really good job defending my perspective, but I did a good job of like kind of unmasking him a little bit, trolling him a little bit, getting him angry, getting him on his toes. But this year I came prepared, and I don't know if I focused enough on like actually embarrassing him.
Yeah, so
Um,
the thing that you have to first figure out is like why are you there? Like what is your goal? Like are you there to have a debate where you prove him wrong on an issue, or are you there to look good for the audience, or are you there to hash out and settle, like actually debate, like really like one or two like concrete points? That's like the first thing, because what your ultimate goal is going to completely determine the rhetorical route that you take. You know, there's not a right answer to this either, by the way. It can be whatever you want it to be.
oh
I
yeah, no. I have two goals. Okay,
Mhm.
one is winning, winning in the marketplace of ideas. No, one
Sure.
is
I mean, you laugh, but like people like Bernie did it, so I mean, it's really important.
no,
Like I said, there
no,
are
no,
no
no, no.
wrong answers here. Yeah.
No, no, absolutely.
Uh huh.
So one is the primary goal there is potentially winning over, you know, the 40-40-20 concept where it's like 20
Wait, who
percent of the
said that?
vote.
Where did you get that from?
I don't know. I don't know exactly what it is, but like
Oh shit! No, I know what you're talking about. That's my concept. I even call it the 40-40-20. Fuck. Who's ripping my shit? Yeah, but I know exactly what you're talking about.
But yeah, but it's like it's just like the well, I've never thought about it in like exact defined metrics, but I'm saying like as far as like there are impartial people in the audience. Okay, so my goal, not only inside of that room, but also as an aftermath, like after on the internet, to win over some people who are impartial, who look at that and go, oh wow, like I learned a lot about socialism today, and this guy looked embarrassing on the other side, and I think the other dude like composed himself, presented himself in a really like intellectual capacity. He did a good job. And he taught me things that I didn't necessarily think about before.
Sure.
And then the other element is just like owning the cons or owning the libs even every now and then, if that's what's necessary. And create like a highlight reel, because that is absolutely successful as far as propaganda goes. And I think we need to be doing more of that on the left. So that's essentially what it is. This is not an intellectual conversation between two peers who genuinely want to solve a problem. This is for entertainment for the most part. But I want to use that element of entertainment where people tune in, and use that for educating people.
Sure. Okay.
Not necessarily just educating people on like how to debate conservatives, which is important, but also educating people on just allowing them to look at things in a more open-minded way, especially when it comes to analyzing and approaching socialism.
Okay, sure. Yeah, I mean, that's fine. So, do you understand how he functions? Do you see kind of what his game is?
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you can break it down even further, but I think his game is gish galloping and just exclusively fucking playing to the crowd for applauses. He even times out his applause breaks in the intro, if you saw it. Like,
yep, comedians do this. It's very smart to do this, yeah.
Yeah. He knows exactly what's going to get an applause break. He has like crafted his messaging for every single issue. He has probably a compilation of like 30 improper data points that he can pull.
Yeah, when he started going on about certain things, like when he started going into LASIK, I know the exact YouTube video. When we were watching it on stream,
I've never fucking seen that.
I knew the exact YouTube video that he was referring to. It's a John Stossel. It's not YouTube. It's a John Stossel thing. Like I brought up the video on stream. We watched like 2 minutes of it, and he repeated every single talking point verbatim. So yeah.
That's crazy. Well, you know what sucks about that?
Yeah.
I know all of the same talking points as well, because I'm like you. I look at this shit all the time obsessively. From like Thomas Sowell and like blacks on welfare concept to all the way to like all these other conservative thinkers and like how they create their talking points. But that one wasn't something I had heard before, but it doesn't matter. It's just such a fucking small focus. Like it has nothing to do with the conversation that I was trying to, it had nothing to do with the conversation that I wanted to have as far as like healthcare. Or like overall healthcare, or even like a social democracy. There was plenty of points where I was, some people in my chat are saying, Hasan, you should drop socialism and go with social democracy if he's going to be arguing for social democracy. Yeah, that was an interesting thing too. Like he kept conflating social democracies to fucking like Mao's China, like insane.
Yeah. So like so his goal, the way that he functions, right? Conservatives are so fucking good at this. Okay, and I don't want to say, if I ever say liberal, no, okay. So Democrats, I'll say Democrats. I'll try to be clear in my terminology. So Democrats historically have been very bad at this. Republicans / conservatives have been very good at this. Have you ever played like a Fallout game, like a Bethesda game, video game?
Yes, dude, of course.
Yeah, okay. So like, you know, when you start talking to an NPC, they have like pre-programmed dialogue trees. This is what is what a conservative is. I saw there were so many times in the debate where he started to do this, and I wasn't sure. And again, like I can identify this because I'm watching from the sidelines. It's harder in person, but like when he would start saying things like, "Oh, you want to talk about like Finland, Sweden, Norway," and it's like, oh god, here comes the like. It's always the same fucking like
Zimbabwe.
Yeah, it's always the same
Cuba.
like Venezuela. Like it's just like it's the same rehearsed dialogue tree. As soon as you let him go, he will like launch into a tirade that's like his pre-planned. You know, you can almost like it's almost like when Chris Christie like not deprogrammed, but like identified like Rubio's programming during the debate. When do you remember that during the Republican debates? when Chris Christie called out Rubio for like, here goes his pre-planned speech, and Rubio went into the same like 2 minutes. Yeah. It's like one of those things, except conservatives actually do this unironically like all the fucking time. If you want to have a debate, there's two things there's like three different ways that you can kind of approach this. So the most effective way is actually what Bernie Sanders does. So what Bernie Sanders does is, like, if you want to talk about like social democracy, or you want to talk about like liberal, like Democrat talking points, that shit is insanely fucking complicated. Okay, it's too much to do and win a debate. You're always going to get like outwinded by your opponent, who can just hammer home a few good talking points, right? The thing that you do to take the wind out of the sails of somebody that's going to gish gallop a million fucking facts at you is to pose them questions at the end that everybody in the audience can identify with. So, for instance, Bernie Sanders would always hammer home like the same few talking points. Why are the 1% getting richer and richer? Why can nobody afford healthcare? Why does it feel like all of our jobs suck, right? Like, these are the things that you'd hammer home. You can pose these questions on the back end of every single thing that Charlie says, and I think he comes out looking worse for it. So when Charlie says his 50 million, like, oh, the economy, blah, 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 they go, oh, blah, 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 85% of small business, blah, blah. It's like, okay, well, why is it then, if we have all this stuff, why can't we afford healthcare for our people? Why can't we afford decent education? Why? Because you're giving me all these numbers and saying everything is good, but for some reason, nobody can afford a college education without going $150,000 in debt. Like, why?
Well, I mean, I did that in a bunch of points. I don't know if you saw the whole debate or not. But,
yeah, I watched the whole thing. Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay, so like in the beginning, I started off identifying the problem, and also backing up with data, like talking about the rate of the number of people living in poverty in this country, the number of people living in extreme poverty in this country. And like, I think I saw one of your highlighted clips where you were like, oh yeah, that's a good point that you made as far as like saying who cares what our GDP is if people are dying in the streets.
Yeah, that was one of the few times where you have to take the wind out of his sails, because if he's going to sit there and throw a million facts at you, you've got to be ready to question it. And like he does this so much. Every time, for instance, like, this is something I would have called him out on. Every time I hear him say like, oh, I have 35,000 different donors. Really? Well, what percentage of those donors are making up like the whole of your donation base or whatever, right? Like, you say you've got 35,000 donors. Well, what percentage of your money comes from like a few donors, right? Like, these are the important questions.
They do this, like Andrew, like Cuomo did this on his campaign when he was running against Cynthia Nixon, where when people correctly called him out for having massive donors, for the most part, he went in and he got like one of the people in his campaign went in and purchased and made like 69 donations at $1 in order to like, in order to muddy up the data and make it seem as though there were more donors than more small donors. And they do this all the time. And that's precisely what Charlie is doing as well. They know how to fucking operate, because Turning Point USA is essentially a dark money super PAC that serves the exclusive purpose of disseminating conservative propaganda points, but also, and even worse than that, and this is admitted, and this is something I called him out last year in the Politicon debate, which he lied directly to my face about, is that they want to change. They're a super PAC that aims to change the outcomes of college campus elections. Student body, like they want a non-representative student governing body, and they do that through funding millions of dollars into college campus elections all around the country. Charlie has admitted, I think in 2015, where he openly admitted, hey, we're not going to change the students' minds. We're not going to get the teachers fired because they're tenured. But what we can do is change the student, the governing body of the student government. That's essentially what he was doing. And
don't they accuse Democrats of trying to do that with immigration?
I know. And then it's all projection. Like everything conservatives do is absolute projection. And they do a really good job at it, because on the one hand, they're doing it flagrantly. And then on the other hand, they're accusing the Democrats of doing it. And it doesn't matter, because if you do enough racial agitation, these fucking hogs are going to sit back and say, hey, you know what? This is fine, because at least like they're protecting my best interest. You know what I mean? Yeah. But yeah, he's admitted that. And also, I think the number is $2.2 million in a 2015 pamphlet that they were handing out to their donors. Like Jane Meyer found out on a New Yorker investigation that they literally were spending $2.2 million on college campus student elections. Nice. Yeah. So it's ridiculous. But yeah, as far as the talking points go, though, like, I don't know what else to do. I don't know how to fucking shut him the fuck up. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
I
mean,
can't
like,
keep
basically,
screaming
in a live debate format like that, they're never gonna let you shut down a Gish Gallop because the thing that sucks, like, it's such an effective debate trick, because for you to shut down a Gish Gallop, you have to come off cross as an asshole, and you've got to interrupt your opponent. So, for instance, like, when I bring on people to debate, like, I very clearly, I'll say at the very beginning, if I ever say anything that you disagree with, interrupt me immediately, and we can discuss that premise, because don't let me keep going if you disagree with something, and then I'm going to do the same to you, because what happens is when you allow somebody to Gish Gallop you, you've lost the argument before you can even respond, right? If we want to talk about, like, blacks in America, and you let me say, okay, let's talk about blacks. Well, firstly, it's 100% statistically proven that they have genetically inferior IQ. Secondly, every single black person across the world has committed at least 3 murders. Fourthly, every single black person across the world has 16 unwed children. Every single blah, blah, and then I do that, and then at the end it's like, how can you defend black people? It's like, holy shit. Well, okay, well, hold on. I got to go back to the very fucking first thing you said. We're going to spend 5 minutes arguing that point. If I'm wrong on even a single sub point in that first point, it's going to feel like I've lost every single point. Like, you absolutely can never, ever, if you're trying to have a real debate and the other guy is engaging in Gish Gallop, you always lose. You can't win. It's not winnable. Even if you're correct on everything, you'll never win that debate ever. It's a very effective tactic. Yeah.
That's precisely what happened. But I think even despite all of that, there were certain moments where I would interject if I caught something, not necessarily just like a propaganda.
Oh God,
point.
when he said that Cubans have a 15-year lesser lifespan than Americans, that's just not true. It's just not true.
No, the Cuban healthcare system is well, one of my favorite talking points, I guess, or one of my favorite components of, like, the Cuban flex on the healthcare system is that they send more doctors.
They export a lot of healthcare.
Yeah, they send more doctors to areas, the disenfranchised areas, than America does. Like, at least one more, I think, in every instance. Not like a higher rate of doctors, like more doctors as a totality. So,
something that you almost did, but eventually he got away from it. It's you gotta hold his feet to the fire when he makes some claims. I wish I could remember exactly what it was. Maybe someone in the chat remember, but there was one time where you almost got him on this, where, like, when he says some real dumb shit, you gotta fucking make him justify it. And you were so close sometimes. My favorite one was
how much deregulation is good? I think that was one of them.
That was an okay one, but an even better one, because it's on a claim that he made, is when he said that Democrat policies were causing black people to kill each other in Chicago. I really want to hear a causal chain for how advocating for free education leads to gangsters killing other people in the street. I really want to hear that story, because that sounds fascinating to me. I want to hear how when somebody gets their college tuition paid for, it causes somebody to acquire a firearm and go and kill another gang member. I really want to hear that story. And holding his feet to the fire on those types of extremely absurd claims would be very, very funny, I think.
Oh yeah, no, the ownage there was when he was like, oh, well, Rahm Emanuel. I was like, first of all, like, we're talking about socialism, and you're telling me, like, Democratic mayors are socialist without providing any sort of evidence. So give me one thing that Rahm Emanuel has pushed for that was socialist that you think is causing the violence in Chicago. And he, like, started to say, like, well, they're experimenting with UBI. So I was like, what? They're premeditatedly murdering one another because they might.
Yeah, you said that. Yeah, that was really good. Yeah, no, it was a really stupid point. Yeah.
But the problem is the crowd is only booing me when Charlie's getting owned. So it completely feels like inside of the room when I'm doing that, it doesn't feel like I fucking demolished his perspective. It feels like people are just heckling me because I'm wrong.
Sure.
You know
and I mean, like, it'll always feel that way. But I mean, that's one of the shitty aspects of having a crowd for a debate
terrible,
like that.
Yeah.
But, like, if you can, the thing is that what you have to understand, this is like something that I've discovered on stream, is that, like, most conservatives that you talk to are one question away from absolute and utter collapse. If you can, like, they have all of their talking points down at the most surface level, but when you ask one more question, they just completely fucking fall apart. Like,
or when I have more information, for example, when he tried to say Dodd-Frank deregulation hurts community banks, and I immediately turned around and I said, look, that's imperfect legislation.
Oh,
sure.
And he immediately after he's like, I don't want to get into this. Like, what? Why? Because it's not part of your dialogue tree? Like, what the fuck?
You just brought it up. You can't just fucking back away when I know more than you. And then he did the exact same thing.
Pivoted to another topic.
He started yelling more, and then he started, like, repeating completely unrelated things about the 2008 housing market crash, and tried to say that it wasn't a consequence of deregulation, but a consequence of corporatism. The reality is, like, unfettered capitalism in the form that Charlie advocates for is precisely the current structure that we live under. And that's
Yeah.
precisely why we're the answer to that is not more capitalism. More capitalism got us here. Another point that was ridiculous.
Oh, that's my favorite meme is every time you ask, like, okay, well, why is this broken? It's so horribly in the U.S. Well, it's because it's not capitalist enough. Like, okay,
Yeah.
dude, all right.
Yeah. Well, the point I was making earlier actually on the stream was that they love to claim that conservatives love to claim that, like, oh, true socialism has never existed as a meme. It's a talking point, whatever. But then they turn around and do the exact same thing where they're like, true capitalism has never existed, which, by the way, it hasn't. Like, obviously it hasn't. And I mentioned that in the conversation as well when we started talking about like publicly funded research and whatnot. But where I was like, capitalism cannot exist without socialism, or at least like some form of socialism.
Mm-hmm.
And he like lost his fucking mind at that very obvious reality. And then 3 points later responded by saying, well, there's like some forms of, socialist policies or whatever. It's a mixed economy. And which
Sure. So
ironically proves my point.
So I would actually push back here really hard because I am a liberal, as much as that might trigger you.
I know you love capitalism.
No, yeah, but so to win that debate, like, effectively against an audience, because that's one of the things that I argue where I get upset with lefties, because it's very hard to argue, because when I have to argue in favor of liberalism or capitalism, I've got to point to my very real, very flawed system and then put that up against an ideal. What the argument, the counter argument that you can put that looks good to an audience is, so because I can't give you a 100% like perfect, alternative that is currently existing right now, we have to accept and then launch into talking points, right? So like so for instance, like you would say something like, I think that socialism can solve these problems, and then I would say, well, you can't prove that, like you have no actual demonstrable evidence of that. And then you would say, okay, well, right now under capitalism we have X million people uninsured, we have X million people that can't afford education, we are 35th in the fucking world in this and this and this and this, and our healthcare blah 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 blah. So just because I can't give you a perfect solution means that I have to stick on the failing ship that we have right now. Like, that's bullshit, right? That would be like your response there. And then that's for me to respond to that, I have to talk way more than you do, which already makes me look bad,
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, it's certainly an advantage, but I never was like advocating for full tilt socialism anyway.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, within the debate, I consistently talked about, I took a more social democratic approach, which is what Bernie Sanders has done as well.
Yeah.
And Bernie Sanders is like a true social democrat, and I think I'm further to the left than him on a variety of different things. But I was doing it to win hearts and minds as best as possible. So I'm of course going to say, look, my personal perspective or what I foresee as an ideal society doesn't matter. This is what I think works in other countries, and we absolutely could implement them here. And here are some comparable nations that we can look at. You know what I mean? Like, that was kind of what I was trying to do. But it doesn't matter because he's not listening to anything I'm saying.
Yeah, and if he doesn't
like random points.
Yeah, if he doesn't listen, it's okay. When you look really good, and I don't know if you backed off this because you were uncomfortable, because it is uncomfortable, but when you ask him a question and he doesn't answer, and then you repeat the question, he looks so fucking bad. That happened at least once in the debate. It might have happened twice, where you said, hey, answer this question, and then he goes up and is like, GDP, blah, blah, blah. Like, hey, you didn't answer my question. Yeah, answer the question. When he can't do that, it makes him look, that is like one of the most deflationary moments ever. In regards to healthcare, what I would say is, like, because whenever conservatives want to argue healthcare, they always have to point to all these like really esoteric, like these one-off, like, oh, what about LASIK eye surgery? And it's like, okay, this is an elective surgery that doesn't save people's fucking lives. Like, your response to that is like, okay, well, what about every other Western nation in the world, save like fucking Switzerland, that uses socialized healthcare that has better outcomes for us at half the cost? Answer that question.
I said something like that, and he but I don't know what exactly his point was to that, but it's like, I mean, every single time it was, I mean, we can look at directly what he said.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wanted to do that. I don't know if you can hear it at the same time if I play it.
Have you ever
the reason
used
why I wanted to look at, like,
if not, why keep
points
it on your taskbar?
Was, wait, when I screen share with you, can you hear it?
Yeah, I can actually. Yeah, if you want to do that, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna do that right now and then. Hold on, let me just move this here. Okay. I'm like losing my voice. I yelled so much last night. Holy shit.
Yeah.
It's a lot of yelling, dude, because I mean, the moderator is like, you know what the moderator's perspective is, especially because, like, he said stuff like, this is democracy in action in the aftermath. It's like, yeah, no,
sounded
exactly.
like Dave Rubin.
This is liberal democracy in action. This is what happens when you fucking put together an ideologue and a propagandist for powerful corporations who have think tanks giving them talking points and whatnot. And on one side, you're like talking, you're trying to have a conversation. On the other side, is not there to have a conversation at all, but to just disseminate misinformation to make his side seem at least partially better. Mm-hmm. Because they also, the worst part about this, and I mentioned this multiple times, but the worst part about it is whenever Charlie was arguing about things, he was arguing about it from a leftist perspective, where he said, like, you know, government's corrupt. That's the thing I hate about fucking. That's the thing I hate about conservative rhetoric now, is that they understand left-wing populism's success better than Democratic politicians do, and I hate it.
Sure. So one thing you have to be really, really careful of when you debate people like this is that, would you call them neocons? Like, the traditional Republicans are much different than the newer breed of of conservatives, where these guys will actually share some talking points with left-leaning people. So, for instance, a lot of the newer conservatives are actually very anti-corporatism. So, like, do you know like people like Nick Fuentes is, or any James Alsop, these kinds of like these people,
they're white nationalists.
Yeah, they are like quasi-fascist people. These guys will actually come out and be anti-corporatist. So you have to be prepared for that level of talking point. It's not like the Republicans of old who will sit there and will suck off every corporation and defend every mega. These guys will actually be like anti-corporation and then like pro-nationalism.
That's Nazi. So that's literally what National Socialism is, though, which is socialism, kind of socialism, performative, like economic populism, but just for white people. And it's the main goal there is still fascism, which is ethnic. Like, the main goal there is still ethnic cleansing, but they know that it is a very difficult goal to try to justify. So they'll do everything they can to make it seem as though it's a good goal and it's honorable, like it's more than just like ethnic cleansing, and they try to sell that idea. And I mean, I don't want to go into like a deep history lesson. I think Three Arrows is a really good job consistently, because he's a historian. I think he's like a history PhD, but he does a good job of like breaking down, fascist propaganda and like it's and the way that like Nazi Germany rose to power.
Yeah. Oh, also, you should have like fucking crucified him on that dumb fucking Nazism, National Socialism. Like, you should have. Oh my god, dude.
There were so many different things at that point that I completely avoided that, because I was like, fuck that. Dude.
Like this is the level of political discourse we're on right now. Really, is like the words sound the same. So okay, dude.
Yeah. But let me see if let me look through. Let me see if there's like a point that I can go to. It shouldn't even be affordable. It should be free. This is what the people want. Nothing is free. 82% of Americans. Yeah, nothing is free. It's like, oh, sick, I'm owned, dude. Yeah, no, I don't understand how taxation works. Yeah, you're right, but. 52% of Republicans want Medicare for all. The only people at this point, the only people who are standing firmly against Medicare for all are just essentially saying, look, I don't care. I love corporate lobbyists. I think Big Pharma should continue to increase their profits. And it doesn't matter if you can't live a dignified life without the crippling fear that if you lose your job, you might lose your health care and you might literally die. And if you can't fund your medicine, if you can't fund your health care, then you should beg on the internet through crowdsourcing. Again, if you are virtue signaling. Like, what is virtue signaling? Like, do you think that's right? Am I virtue signaling at that?
I mean, I am, but like, I would own it. Like, when someone says like you're virtue signaling, you'd be like, yeah, I'm signaling the virtue that I don't want Americans to fucking die because they can't afford healthcare. Like, that's like then I would just own that shit. There's a lot of insults that conservatives throw you that you can actually just own it and go, yeah, I am virtue signaling here. Like, this is the virtue I would like to signal. If you have a problem, please let me know. Like, yeah, I would just own that.
Yeah, the issue there, and you're right, I should have done that actually, because I do believe that. I do believe everything I said there, but like virtue signaling implies that I don't believe in it, versus like virtue signaling actually could be applied in Charlie's like Venezuela arguments, for example, or even like these like Latin American countries that he talks about all the time. It's like if if you actually, and I did do that actually later down the debate when we were talking about Venezuela, where I was like, if you genuinely cared about these people, you wouldn't actually support a president who is toying around with the idea of supporting a coup, like another violent military coup in the country of Venezuela. You wouldn't actually support the idea of like imposing sanctions upon a crippled nation.
This is another thing that you have to be really careful of too. These are the two. I'm glad you brought that up. These are the two big points that I don't know if you're aware or not, but the types of like these types of new conservatives are anti-corporatism, but they're also anti-interventionalism as well. So they will actually agree with you. I noticed that there were a couple times where it looked like he wanted to go hard on that, but he was able to kind of shut that down because these guys are oftentimes anti-foreign intervention as well, where they will say things like, oh, well, we actually want an isolationist, protectionist America that doesn't intervene in foreign policy as well. A lot of the new conservatives will echo those same talking points.
Yeah, the problem here, though, is that Charlie, unlike Fuentes and unlike other people, is still beholden to the same corporate benefactors that the neocons are. Mm-hmm. So, like, he might actually spice it up by saying, oh, you know what? I actually don't like corporatism. Well, it's like, dude, Foster Freeze, and I alluded to that a little bit in the debate as well, where it's like, mm-hmm. you're funded by those people. Like, you're funded by those people. You're representing their perspective.
You kind of hit that a few times. I noticed that where you would say, they're going to be mad that you're deviating from the talking points. Do you remember when you said that a couple times?
Yeah.
If you would hit on that, like, in a more direct way, like, so, like, every time he says, like, oh, well, I'm anti-corporatism, too. And it's like, okay, well, why do you take money from them? You're just like Hillary Clinton, right? They fucking hate that word. But, like, but, like, that's, so like, an easy thing, right? Yeah, like, because this is what a lot of Bernie, well, me included, this is what people criticize Hillary for, was that if I bring up Hillary Clinton's donor list, she's going to tell me on one hand that she's for, financial reform of all the banking regulations, blah, 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 blah. But then you see that, like, Citigroup and all these people that, like, her biggest donors, like, how the fuck am I supposed to believe you? Like, you're getting your marching orders from these guys.
Or when Bernie moved her further to the left, obviously, because she, like, had to forcibly acknowledge that populism was economic populism was actually a good talking point for her. And she said, I want to repeal, like, Citizens United. Mm-hmm. and then even Jimmy Kimmel was like, but you have so much super PAC money, and then they have to turn around and be like, well, we have to use the tools that are given to us in the system. It's just like, it's bullshit. It's bullshit. And on the other side, he tried to argue that fucking perspective where he was like, well, if you're a socialist, why don't you give 95% of your salary? And I don't know what to do with that.
Oh, this is actually a really good moral dilemma. It's good to know the answer to this. Yeah. This is a tough one. So for instance, I'm in favor of higher taxation. I think that I could easily pay a lot more in taxes and be totally fucking fine. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to voluntarily give up more of my money to the fucking IRS, because that's going to come at a great personal cost to me with no benefit to society. So when I say I'm in favor of greater taxation, well, yeah, kind of, yeah. But, like, finding a way to say this in a less wordy way is really important. It sounds really dumb, but getting things across, like, with a lot of brevity is so important for getting, like, zingers in these debates. But yeah, like,
for sure.
Because you did kind of say this towards the end in a more wordy way. Like, well, me giving all my money isn't going to solve anything. But, like, being able to have that, like, immediately, like, prepared. Like, if he's like, well, why don't you give all of your money to taxes? Like, because if I do it on my own, it's not going to solve anything. I need everybody doing this via government policy. Otherwise, it's not going to do fuck all, right? Like, having, like, prepared response like that is really good.
Yeah, I wanted to, like, draw an analogy or a comparison to like liberal policies that don't actually do anything, that make us feel better about ourselves, and like how it's a similar dichotomy when the straw ban only eliminates like 0.006% of the plastic in the ocean. When 100 companies are responsible for 71% of the global carbon like global emissions that are ruining our atmosphere, right? Or that are ruining the environment. So, like, it's about systemic change. If 95% of my salary, my measly salary, but they didn't even hyper focus on how much do you make, which I reluctantly admitted, and then and it's like laughably low for someone who lives in Los Angeles, and then even follow that up by saying $174,000, according to Ted Cruz's wife, is not necessarily enough to buy a second house. I'm making way lower than that. But it's still a lot more than what most Americans have. But it didn't matter. It was just like, it was just like I said. What do you call it? It was then he got steamrolled, and then Cenk, like, screamed from the crowd and was like, "How much do you make, Charlie?" A question that he asked me, which I answered. But when he was asked the same exact question, he fucking got up and, like, screamed at the crowd like a psychopath.
Yeah, he got real mad.
Yeah, no, it's great, though, because the memes are fucking delicious. I mean, Wait, let me see. Like I made a couple. Some people have made some memes. Like it's great. The memes are great. Like it's a good opportunity.
Having like one-liners or like zingers, it sounds so dumb, but they're so fucking important.
100%.
Like when he got up and started screaming at Cenk, like if you had a response to something like, man, I wish you were that upset at how many people don't have health care in the United States, would play over so fucking well with the crowd.
Oh shit, dude.
It's really hard to do it in the moment, but like as you practice these more and more, just kind of like create like a little bank in the back of your head of things like this. These types of zingers like totally take the wind out of the sails of like demagogues like this, because keep in mind that like fact doesn't really support them most of the time. Like you see that he plays there's a really good quote by, I don't know how to pronounce this guy's name. Is it Sartre or Sartre? I don't know. Jean-Paul
Sartre. Yeah,
Sartre. Yeah, sorry, fuck.
Sartre.
Are you familiar with his quote where it's like fascists will play with facts and they delight in your obligation to being true or whatever? Do you have any idea what I'm talking about?
I think so. I think I know what you're
it's basically
talking
the idea that like if you sit here and you try to have a fact-based conversation with somebody that's like a fascist, like they're just gonna laugh. They don't care. They'll easily dance from point to point, not caring if what they say is right or wrong. They don't constrain themselves with any silly notion of truth or whatever. They're just trying to win the debate in the public eye, which they do very effectively. If you're, as long as you're aware of that and you try to play by the same rules, or you're at least aware of the rule set that they're playing with, then you can go for like big wins that aren't necessarily fact-based.
Yeah, no. Oh, yeah. The anti-Semites have the right to play. They even like to play with discourse by giving ridiculous reasons.
Mm-hmm.
They discredit the seriousness of their interlocutors. They delight in acting in bad faith, since they seek not to persuade by sound argument, but to intimidate and disconcert. If you press them too closely, they will abruptly fall silent. Yeah, this is all. Yeah,
yep.
That literally happened to fucking the guy that Stephen King. Fuck. That was the thing I'm so angry about, dude. One of the questions was, is conservatism racist before the debate? And I wanted to push Charlie on this because he hangs out with Steve King so much, dude. He fucking loves Steve King. Since the last time we debated.
Is that Iowa state senator or whatever?
Yeah, dude. And Steve King is a white nationalist.
Yeah.
Not only is he a white nationalist, he also recently, not only did he fucking... oops, I accidentally retweeted a Nazi, and he like retweeted a British Nazi or whatever. He also personally endorsed fucking Faith Goldie. And Faith Goldie is a 14 words declaring white nationalist running for Toronto mayor. Mm-hmm. So when you do that, it's like fairly obvious what you're doing. Like you don't need to fucking you don't need to have a swastika tattoo to be deemed a Nazi at that point. You know what I mean? Like I know that I think you and I both probably agree that like the left does have a tendency to be like, oh, that person's a Nazi. Oh, that person's a fascist. Or that person's racist, especially in instances where people are like unaware of their own ignorance, right? Sure. Like we immediately vilify. We have a tendency to vilify. But like there are people who are genuinely this way now.
Yeah.
That are getting like there's like 9 openly anti-Semitic like fascists who are running for positions, like public positions on the GOP ticket right now, all around America. You have Steve King who's doing this, and Charlie Kirk has no issue running around and hanging out buddy with Steve King and going after photo ops, and then telling me that like or running around with Candace Owens and claiming that Democrats are the real racists.
Yeah.
So silly. We didn't even get there. I mean, I'm sure I'll have time to get there because like I said, what do you call it? Like I said, I'm going to be debating him more. There's going to be a variety of different things that we're talking about.
You should do like, you should do this on stream. Like you can find people on, because you're not banned from Twitter like I am. You can, wait, I don't know if you do Twitter though. At least you have an Instagram. I do
Twitter. I fuck with Twitter.
Yeah,
I love
dude,
Twitter.
if you start tweeting, dude, these like fucking alt-right people, these Nazi conservatives, whatever, they all come out of the fucking woodwork. You should do debates on stream so that you can like have like a rehearsed set of shit. Because like this is like, you're an intelligent guy. Like when people watch my stream, like I have so many lines that I can run down. Like if somebody's watching my stream and I get into a debate with a conservative and they ask a question where they're like, how are voter ID laws racist? Like everybody in chat knows that's like, all right, dude, I've done this conversation like 25 times before. Like, let's do it. If you just start to get like a working vocab for dealing with these types of people, because they all use the same type of rhetoric. They all use the same fucking talking points. Like the guys on the big stage, they're just the ones that originate these talking points. They're not any more intelligent than the people that echo them, because oftentimes they haven't thought it out any more than the other people have. So yeah.
Well, I called him out on the LASIK thing a little bit, which people seem to like in the audience too. And I was like, I'm willing to bet that you don't know enough about LASIK either, and it's just the talking point that you found out because it doesn't even like demonstrate the overall problem. You know.
Yeah.
But,
Don't ever get don't ever let them take you down like a very one specific thing. And LASIK is just so stupid. Like again, like for the future, if anyone brings it up, like LASIK that's an elective surgery. It's a new technology. Like there is probably a multitude of reasons why the cost for that came down. But people in America aren't dying because they're not getting access to LASIK surgery. We're not asking for universal health care so we can all get LASIK surgery. Like it's so stupid to use that as a comparison point, you know? Like go back to like, okay, cool, LASIK has gotten cheaper. Now tell me why other countries can afford to have X-rays without them costing $700 per fucking office visit.
A really good talking point that I like that you can use as well, which is other countries also actively collectively bargain for prices, like for price points and reduce price points for medication when they're purchasing it.
Yeah.
And this to me demonstrates that you absolutely can sell this medication for lower prices. And because if they turn around and they're like, well, the U.S. is subsidizing it, I'd be like, well, that's ridiculous. But look at like the fact that these countries are still allowed to purchase this medication, or these companies are still selling this medication, means that they can still make profit when they're selling at much lower points of much lower price points, because they wouldn't if they didn't make money. They just simply wouldn't.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
He also kind of contradicts his own arguments just because they're different talking points. But for instance, on one hand, he says the reason why U.S. healthcare is so expensive is because we do the research and everything for the rest of the world. But then in his next breath, he's saying stuff like, well, I want to get rid of like patents that protect companies from making these medications. It's like, okay, well, wait, hold on. You just said the reason why they were so expensive is because they're making it for everybody else. If you get rid of the patents, aren't American companies, by your own logic, not going to make these medications anymore? Like, what do you mean?
He said he's like anti-patent. Like, I don't know if you remember that, but he was like, at some point he was like, well, I asked him like, okay, give me specific examples.
I know exactly what you're talking. Yeah, what regulations would you remove? And he's like, well, the 30-year patent, blah, 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 blah. It's like, okay, well, you just said that Americans are the ones that export the innovation to the rest of the world. If you get rid of the patents by your own logic, aren't these companies going to stop doing that? Like, yeah.
Yeah, and also like it's ridiculous for him to like adopt leftist positions like he did, kind of by like throwing Alan Greenspan and like bankers under the bus.
Oh God, I think
like,
when he started going over, I haven't watched the movie, but it sounded like he was reading like the script to like The Big Short or whatever, and it's oh dude, and you say, oh man, and he's talking about how like that's not a failure of capitalism. Like companies can absolutely be incentivized for short-term disasters and shit. Like when you talk about like the credit rating agencies and shit, like part of the reasons why they rate shit poorly is because if you don't, people are just gonna go to other companies. Like this absolutely happens in capitalism. Like people can be incentivized for short-term gain over long-term stability all the fucking time. Like this happens all the time.
Yeah, they do it. As a matter of fact, that's precisely the reason why regulation is a necessity when it comes to this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of how much regulation versus versus not, I guess. In this instance, we're going to argue it from a socially democratic perspective.
And then he brought up like, what did he bring up? Dodd-Frank or whatever. That's been largely gutted. Like, why?
I know.
Yeah.
That's why I immediately retaliated by saying, well, tell me a reason why eliminating the fiduciary responsibility was a good thing. And as soon as I said that, he was like, well, let's move on.
Yeah.
Let's move on from the previous talking point that I actually wanted to talk about. Now that you've demonstrated that you know more than I do. Yeah. No, he did that. He did that through and through. But I was going to ask you, like, what specifics, if you can remember, like, what specific points would you say, like, I should be working on, and like, what could I be doing better? If there's anything that you can remember off the top of your head, because I'm like trying to remember exact points from the debate, but
yeah, it's not so much points; it's more like rhetoric. Like, how do you approach the conversation? What are your goals? Is typically what happens. Yeah.
Yeah, because the majority of people were like, in the aftermath, were saying, like, I mean, everyone, I think there was a consensus where there was like, nah, dude, like, Charlie was like, oh yeah, he got owned. You know what I mean? That was the majority consensus.
Well, their side will always say that, and then your side will always agree.
No. Even like people who were like, I don't really like Hasan. That's what I look for usually. It's like, I don't really like Hasan. I think he's an asshole or a douchebag, but I think he really did a good job or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And then the only things that conservatives that were like pro Charlie in this instance, or like pro whatever the fuck he's talking about without necessarily thinking about the outcomes, were like, oh, well, Charlie talked about facts and Hasan only did the feels over reals. And it's like, no, I think I did a decent job of like demonstrating my talking points through factual information, but
One of the biggest ways that I trigger conservatives, it's so funny, is because they always bring out that facts over feels thing. Conservatives argue in feels all the fucking time. And anytime you have an opportunity to point that out, it absolutely triggers the ever-loving fuck out of them. So when a conservative starts going on and on about like, oh, well, we need to do this for healthcare because if we deregulate more, blah, 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 blah. And it's like, dude, listen, it's cool that you feel that way, but I can only look at the empirical evidence of the, 50 other countries that all have social healthcare that are doing really well. So
that's literally what that is what I did with healthcare. But I don't know how to.
You have to use their terminology though and turn it against them. That's really important. When you say all I can talk about are my facts, I can't deal with your feelings. If you feel that your healthcare could be better, that's fine. But I can only go by what's demonstrable in the real world, right? If you can use their own terminology to attack them, it's it triggers the absolute fuck out of them. Yeah.
Yeah. What else was I gonna say? Hold on, let me just write this here too. But yeah, I can't really think of. Let me go through. There was a leftist dude in my group on my Facebook group that's I think he's a communist or a tanky who gave me some clear, very clear, very constructive criticism because he thought, because he was like, oh yeah, Charlie beat you. He was like, I'm gonna be honest, I think Charlie owned you. I like you or whatever, but here's why.
Yeah, I don't know if I would say that either side owned the other, but I think that Charlie had a better. I think Charlie had better rhetoric for a stage presence. I would say, yeah, that if you were a conservative watching that, I think for the most part you come away feeling oh yeah, you fucking got him or whatever. I think. Just because he plays
so strange to me because it's he very obviously was just flailing around and throwing around completely random facts that had nothing to do with what we were talking about.
So this is a really important life skill lesson is you have to be being able to look at things from other people's point of view is so fucking important. You've got it, you have to understand how other people see things because it's not always going to be the same whether you do, right?
I focus on that.
Yeah, I still get triggered. I understand why people say it, but I'll get triggered for instance, people say things like Trump is such a good speaker and it's no. Oh my God, he's such a bad speaker. Cruz was a good speaker. Even Rubio was a good speaker. Trump is not a good speaker. But if you actually take the time to look at how Trump talks, you can at least understand why people say that, right? Okay,
Trump is charismatic.
Yeah,
Trump is charismatic
kind of. Yeah,
he speaks of idiots.
Yeah, and he speaks at a second grade reading level. He ends all of his sentences with strong verbs and shit. There are a couple of rhetorical techniques that you can steal from him. Another really strong thing that I noticed, and I'm getting a little nitpicky, but if you can end your statements on strong points instead of having them feather out because Charlie's starting to interrupt you, that would make you look good as well. I think in the last thing you just watched on screen, I think there was an opportunity for you to end it with people without healthcare will die. If you end things on strong words like that, it's a very powerful ending statement rather than kind of teetering out because Charlie is starting to chime in and then it kind of weakens the last point you were making. But yeah.
Yeah. The person who was who is criticizing me from a more leftist perspective said he wanted me to essentially argue completely from a socialist, full socialist perspective and say look, the current system is capitalist. You know what I mean? It's ultimately capitalist. And then that's precisely why the capitalist government is still making capitalist decisions that will be at the best interest of corporations and whatnot.
Oh yeah, no, you never want to listen to people like that.
No, I know.
Are you familiar with have you seen the kind of the Nazi talking points? You have to borrow from that playbook. So Nazis.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, fucking Yusuf that owned Steven Crowder, that fucking economic nationalist who just dissected Steven Crowder so perfectly. It was awesome.
The things that Nazis have kind of realized is that they're so smart with how they present themselves. You usually see Richard Spencer. This is a guy that I could introduce my parents to. He's very well spoken. He looks nice. His hair is nice and done up. He wears a suit or whatever. And the way that he presents his ideas are always in these positive things that we should have a homeland for our people. That we don't want people to steal from blah blah blah. We want to preserve our ancestry. We want to preserve the way that they talk so positively and very simply about their ideas is so important. You want to do in terms of the Nazi talking points, you want to steal their kind of rhetorical strategies because they're very effective.
I fully agree with you.
Yep.
Instead
when
of
lefties start saying
kill all
Yeah, when lefties
Instead of
start saying
we need
shit
to
like,
kill all the minorities,
you need to get up
go
there
on.
and you need to talk about eating the rich and you need to tell everybody that they've got to read all of Das Kapital, they need to all like go study market. Like, dude, like fuck, you're gonna lose 90% of the people. Like, no, you need to get up there and you need to go full Bernie. You need to say free healthcare for all, free education, because these things sound good and that's it. You just leave it at that.
You're right. I should have been like, why don't you want people to be educated? Like, why don't you want people to get a free education and better themselves and make themselves a more competitive labor force internationally? Like, things of that nature, instead of saying, because Nazis say, instead of saying we need to kill all the minorities, they say, why can't we protect white people? Why is that white people are under attack?
They phrase all of their stuff like it's so disgusting. I hate it because I understand it, but like they'll say things like, this is a really common one, right? When you're like, what do you mean you want to kick all the black people out of America? You don't think they belong here? They'll go like, whoa. Actually, on the opposite, I think black people definitely deserve their own homeland, the same way that white people do. I want black people to all be together and happy in Africa with their own people, just like I want white people to be together and happy here. You let the Jews do it in Israel. Why can't white people do it in America? Nobody ever criticizes Japan for being all Japanese, right? They always have like this whole fucking list of shit. It's like, oh my God. Yeah.
Well, the cultural homogeneity argument is so silly. It's not even, I mean, it's like a derivative of fascist talking points, but like even Ben Shapiro does it. You know what I mean? When they're like, oh, well, Norway has cultural homogeneity. It's like, okay, but first
we have
of all,
too many black people. Like, that's what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, there are plenty. First of all, Venezuela has cultural homogeneity as well. So obviously, like, not every country with cultural homogeneity is successfully implementing like socialist principles or a more robust social state, which Venezuela isn't even more socialist than fucking Norway. That's the thing that gets me really mad. And it's a consequence of multiple things. There was a point where Charlie tried to be like, no, it's actually because these countries are failing because of socialism. And then he tried to turn it around and be like, I said something like, a lot of times these countries fail because of a multitude of different reasons. And then he tried to say, I forget what it was, but he's like, the defining factor of socialism or something. I was like, I'm not an idiot. I'm not arguing that it's one thing that cripples an entire nation versus you are. Oh, Zimbabwe. When he brought up Zimbabwe,
and he's got like 7 different countries that he can like launch into it.
Yeah. Zimbabwe is very obviously like racially motivated too. It's like a new one that I haven't really heard from that much, but yeah, when he said Zimbabwe, I was like, well, it's not just socialism, Charlie. And he's like, well, what do you mean? It's just socialism. And I said, give me multiple reasons why the economy is failing in Zimbabwe. And he was like, well, it's because socialism is bad. And also because socialism makes me feel bad. And also because, you know what I mean? It was just like.
One thing that you almost got him on. Fuck! This is another one where you should have really fucking hammered this. You shouldn't have let the debate go on without answering this. This dumb shit is communism killed 100 million people. Okay, dude, and you started, but you needed to make him answer the fucking question. Why can't we attribute every single death today that occurs because of first of all, he said we had an overabundance problem in the West. Bullshit. We have a distribution problem. I can go to one of the richest cities in the world and step outside of a Starbucks and find a mentally retarded dude digging in his own fucking asshole with his thumb, okay? There is a fucking problem here with our distribution of goods and capital and whatever, and income in the United States, okay? If you want to give every single death that occurred under a communist regime as a death to communism, why can't I do the same to capitalism?
I did the same. I said that.
You did, but he kept pivoting, and then eventually moved off of it. You needed to make him answer that question because there is no good answer, and you should have hammered it until he conceded that the 100 million. Because I think later on in
here it is. Look here, let's play it.
Go. Yeah.
Do you realize wait, hold on. Let me finish. Right? Okay, go ahead. 3.9 million Americans on all food stamps and info labor force under the president. That should be applauded by everybody.
By the way, that's a ridiculous talking point too, because like the Republicans are cutting those programs and then making it seem like it's a positive thing because people have gone off.
But it's even like, that is kind of true. But there's a better way to frame that. Actually, what you say is that your bar for success for the United States is people getting off fucking food stamps. That's the difference between you and me. You want to keep everybody barely fucking living, and I want the country to thrive. Always speak in the positive, right? Yeah. Always try to speak in the positive as much as
Yeah. No. My point was that like it's not necessarily a good metric to say that 3.9 million people are off food stamps because they didn't willingly get off food stamps. It's because the government decided that we don't we don't want to give this many food stamps away. It's like that's actually cutting government programs and then making it seem like it's a metric for success. That was my perspective.
Sure,
on
yeah,
it,
yeah, it is. But just keep in mind, like your best answers, brevity is so fucking important. If you can hammer home a quick, good, powerful talking point and as few words as possible, it's so much more powerful than having to launch. It sucks because on our side, our answers are all more complicated than just pull yourself up by your bootstraps. So you got to find those simple answers that you can hammer home, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, let's play. Let's see what he's gonna.
Less people have to go to government for their.
So stupid.
That's a good thing. So, say this agreement. Just because someone gets rich, doesn't mean someone gets poor. In order for you to get rich in a free market system, you must have a good idea. You must create value. Employ people. Borrow money. You have an 80% chance that this is succeeding. Yes, we have lots of failure. You have seen years. All people, things get bad, go down. We are able to enjoy the only if we create. Yeah, we should reject socialism. Yeah, no, we should. Yeah.
I should have said no. We should call ourselves socialists instead of.
But yeah, this was actually one of the worst ones. Don't ever let him go into a tirade and then agree with him at the end. Fuck, that looks really bad.
Yeah.
Don't ever let that happen, okay?
I was a little nervous here. I was trying to get into the groove of things.
Sure. Yeah, no, I understand. Yeah, it's really hard to do this shit live.
What's really important to me is like on focusing on the rate of growth and the GDP. But you can't answer the question. Who cares what our GDP is if the person who is dying of abject poverty it can't because we don't have a socialized message. So if you care solutions, happy to talk about it. You brought up Norway, Sweden, Finland. You would call those socialist.
Oh, this is where I could tell so hard. He is fucking ready, dude. As soon as know, notice how he didn't even engage with your point. He's ready to run down that fucking dialogue tree. Every time I hear a conservative, oh, you brought up Norway, Finland, and Sweden. Oh, well, let me get out my book because I know so many fucking talking points about these people. Did you know that these countries aren't even really communist socialists? These actually started on capitalists. Did you know these have cultural homogeneity? They don't even have any black people. Did you know that these guys? Like,
I know the talking points. I know them really well. But, like, at that point, he's steamrolling me, and, like, the fucking moderator, obviously, the moderator I don't even think knows what the fuck we're talking about, really.
No,
and, like,
he's just there to watch the mayhem.
He's just like, sit in between us, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just, and when he drops that point, I immediately butt in, and I interject, and I say, no, those aren't socialist countries, those are social democracies, but it doesn't matter. It's, like, getting drowned out because, one, he has the microphone.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that was part of the...
Like I said, like it sucks. It feels awkward, but trust me, it is so much more awkward for him for you to just repeat the question or repeat your last point. Like, hey, answer this point. I will do this on stream, and it's so powerful. Is when you ask a question and then you let them go on and on and on, and then at the end you're like, okay, that's really cool, dude, but you didn't answer my question. Can you answer this question? And then let them go on and they'll be like, all right, dude, I understand, but you need to answer this question. Like it looks so bad on them when they can't engage on that point. It's a huge audience win.
Yeah.
Because this is like really improper framing, and a lot of people confuse socialism. You said inherently explicit. Frame the argument. Oh, with capitalism.
So we're not even talking about socialism again. He delivers his talking point, saying that these are like socialist nations,
Do you think
even though they're not. And then he says capitalism is inherently exploitative. Yeah, it's like, well, I'm not even talking about that. We even finished like my perspective. You obviously don't know with the difference between, or you're purposely ignoring the difference between social democracies and socialism.
Mm-hmm.
Norway, Sweden, and Finland, according to the World Economic Freedom Index, higher than the United States of America.
I love this talking point.
They have less tax, they have lower tax. So that means that you can have socialism and yet still have successful businesses in your country. Thank you for proving my point for me. I loved it. It's the exact opposite. You know what socialism is? Bernie Sanders wants to.
So when I see how I fucking
that was good. That was really good.
That was a good retaliation, and then as soon as that happens, he gets even increasingly angrier, starts yelling. His like talking points get even more ridiculous. And like the more ridiculous it gets, the more appealing it is to a larger audience.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Let me explain it to you? Do you understand? Do you want me to explain it to you? Socialist? Is North Korea not socialist? Was Vietnam not socialist? Was Zimbabwe not socialist? You can laugh all you want. Okay, but 100 million people died under socialism in the last 100 years, and you have the gumption to continue. Okay. Keep laughing.
This is something where, like, again, like, as much as you can turn his arguments against themselves, it would be like I would respond to something like this, like, do you think that the United States of America is comparable to fucking Zimbabwe? Do you think that the United States of America is fucking, like, are these your measures for success? Are these the countries that you want to hold us as being equivalent to? Why don't we compare ourselves to countries like Germany, France, Italy, Spain, the United Kingdom, Sweden, Norway?
Yeah.
These are all countries that have social health care where it works. Don't you think we're a little bit more like those countries and not like a country that might not even have failed because of socialism? Because when we talk about, like, imperialism and all that shit, like, and that's a whole other topic that I can't even fucking talk about because my history is fucking horrible. But if you want to talk about, like, the continent of Africa and its history with imperialism, you could probably find a lot more reasons related to that for why any country fails than fucking the form of economy or type of government they have, right?
No, absolutely. But, like, even before that point, I was trying to get to the million number. Easy dunk.
Wait, hello?
Wait, I'm here still.
Oh,
Can
yeah,
you hear me?
sorry. Yeah, your mic cut off for a second. But okay, gotcha.
Okay, thank you for those words. You're welcome. When 100 million people die under a communist dictatorship, and some of those millions are also Nazis, which is included there, whatever, you blame communism. National Socialist Workers Party.
So,
Oh
like,
my
I don't even get in there. Doesn't matter. You blame.
You blame socialism, but when 7 million people die every year under our current global capitalist environment, where just by famine alone, before we even talk about imperialism, before we even talk about the damaging wars that are happening all around the world, then it's the individual. So you're essentially telling every single person that's poor, it's your fault that you're poor, it's your fault that you die under a capitalist system. But if you were under a communist system, never said. I mean, that's literally what you're saying. So whose fault is it? Whose fault is it that 7 million people every year die just by famine-related diseases and famine under our current global capitalist structure? Yeah. Why is it with the system?
Yeah, it's just.
Listen to this for a while and watch how he pivots.
Yeah, he pivoted, but, like, do you see the reaction to that statement in comparison to the reaction where he was like 100 million people died under communism?
Mm-hmm.
It should give you a better understanding of, like, what that entire room was like. And
Oh,
I know
yeah,
that
no,
could have
I
been a little bit
understand.
more succinct, but he butts in between my point, and it makes it a little, like, it makes it much harder.
Sure.
But you're right. I need to shorten it a little bit better.
Even if you don't, you just keep asking the same question. Why can't I attribute those deaths to capitalism? If he can't answer it, he looks bad even in his own audience's eyes. He will look bad by not being able to engage with that point directly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, see, the fucking moderator stops me and points it over to Charlie, like, before I even finish my question.
Mm-hmm.
God damn it, it makes me so angry. Like, what
Wait,
am I
what did
gonna
he say?
do
There's
here?
not a single. He said there's not a single person to blame or whatever.
He's gonna say it. Hold on.
You're not answering my question. There's not a single. Oh, it's unfortunate. Yes, that was unfortunate. Yeah, I know. I understand. But you seem as though they were just a statistic.
So he pivoted. He's like, let's talk about healthcare in particular.
Yep.
We went over the point,
Yeah.
and, like, we didn't even talk about it at all. He just, like, pivoted to a completely different perspective.
Yep.
And, like, I followed him down that rabbit hole,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
bad.
When you let them control the conversation, because he's never taking you into a topic where he doesn't have a dialogue tree prepared. If you let him control
But
the
it doesn't
conversation,
matter. I have counters to every single thing, and I think my problem is, because I was so confident that I was like, it doesn't matter if he takes me down the fucking healthcare train, because I have enough counters readily available, with, like, factually based counters readily available, that I can hit him with other exposes logical fallacies and whatnot. But I should have still continued.
Yeah.
But I just kept caving because I was like, he keeps fucking yelling over, and it doesn't matter, because no matter what happens, people are still going to say, oh, well, you yelled over him, Hasan. You yelled over him. Well, apparently the fans calculated it. They were, like, looking at this. I think this number is a little bit higher, but they were saying that in the 56-minute debate, Charlie interrupted me 76 times.
Sure. Oh, I was going to have somebody
then-
in my audience do it right up. People do that with me sometimes. When I had a
Yeah,
debate with
Charlie-
Fuentes towards the end, Fuentes told me, like, God gave you 2 ears and one mouth. And I was like, really? Because it feels like I've been, like, talking half as much as you. And I actually had a fan that went through the whole debate and tallied it up, and he had been talking for that. Up to that point, he had been speaking for 2 hours, and I'd been speaking for 1. So, yeah, conservatives do this shit a lot, yeah.
Yeah, they fucking overpower you, or they try to overpower you. and then they turn around and make themselves a victim, which is inherently a very like conservative thing to be like, oh, I'm the victim.
And
Actually.
ultra ironic because they're the ones that talk about victim complexes and victim mentality and all that shit all the time.
None of it matters. Yeah, it's all like cyclical argumenting,
Projection,
It doesn't matter because like people, all they want to hear is like someone yell out fucking statistics so they can clap at it and say, oh, you just got owned.
Yeah. The one thing that is like really, really hard, and I feel your frustration, and I will tell you that because I've been doing this for so long now that like I was where you are. You have to abandon in your head right now, and even if you disagree with me, I'm not going to believe you because I still feel it. You have this feeling inside of you where you're like, if I just have the facts and I'm correct, I will come out on top. It is absolutely not true. Any part of you that feels that inside, you got to kill that. You have to squash. It's going to hurt and it's going to feel wrong. We're going to be like, okay, well, fuck. Like, what I just said isn't entirely factual. Or like, fuck, like, I know I'm correct on the facts. It doesn't matter. None of that fucking matters when you're talking to conservatives, okay? These people delight in misinformation. You will never, ever, ever win a debate with one of these people by just hammering home facts. They don't care about them.
Yeah, no, I know. And then they'll say facts over feelings.
Yeah.
My set of facts over feelings.
Yep.
And then
when and like unironically, they'll make the most feels like I listen. Oh, dude, my dream is to get Ben Shapiro on stage at some point, right? Where he'll say like, "Well, my facts don't care about your feelings. I'm gonna call you a male or female based on," and it's like based on what, dude? On how you feel? Because if I look at like the American Psychologists Associations, like all of these people recognize that transgenders are real people, that transgender thought is a real thing, it's scientifically studied, it's well understood. Like I don't understand why your feelings override the scientific fact. Like they will do this all the time on all of these on all these debate points where their feelings will override, like any notion of scientific fact. Look at fucking their stance on things like fucking climate change. Like Jesus Christ, like how are you gonna sit here and tell me fucking fact over feeling? Like
yeah, no, I gotta hit him with someone said in Voodoo Turtle said like, yeah, no, that's great you feel that way, but answer my question.
Yeah,
it would have been a very appropriate.
Yeah.
And it's so easy. It just sucks that it's like it's so easy that it's so easy to rebut, and I forget it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, here. So he goes in the VA argument, which I hammered his bitch ass on, I think.
$1 billion a year. We spend trying to help for anything. $80 billion a year we spend. And they wait in line. And it's the quality care. Not say that the veterans are well-run. I just spend $180 billion a year trying to help. How disgusting. What that you would send these young men and women overseas to go fight not you, I'm talking about conservatives in general. Just conservatives in general don't mind sending these young men and women overseas to fight imperialist conflict that have nothing to do with protecting America or protecting American sovereignty. Hold on, that's great. That's just one war though. We are waging many currently. But then they come back and the numbers have obviously increased. The number of casualties have increased. The treatment is drastically different than a regular pool of American citizens aren't in the line of fire. How could you then turn around, not fund that system that we promised those veterans we would take care of them, not fund that system, and then use it as a talking point to say socialized medicine does not work? That is disgusting. We should take care of our veterans. You know what's disgusting, Hassan?
He's like, he gets real mad, dude. He's
so
just like screaming. Oh,
so butthurt.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Substance Jane, for the Twitch Prime subscription. But yeah, no, it's.
The fact that you defend that system, the fact that vets die waiting for care. Our vets are our heroes. First of all, I'm against the FDA.
Our vets are our heroes. It's fucking so silly. It's so stupid.
So this is yeah, I agree. It is. This is something where like you can turn it around, and again, anytime you can pose a quick thing and he has to get wordy, it looks so good at you. This is where you turn around and you say something like, oh, so you want to defund the VA? And then make him talk for how to fix it, right? That's it. And if he's like, well, what I want to do is I actually want to privatize it. So you want to defund the VA. I just want to hear you say that you want to defund the VA. Is Social Security next? Like, you can just launch into something like that, and he will have to get very, very wordy. Especially, dude, when you start talking fucking, for as much as conservatives hate all these publicly funded programs, you start fucking with their Social Security, the average age of a fucking Republican in the United States is like 115 years old, okay? When you start going after their Social Security, they're not going to be fucking happy about that shit, you know?
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. I think there was a point where we talk about Medicare, and because he's like, name one instance where like bigger government has been helpful, and I was like Medicare, and then Social Security, and like, but it doesn't matter. Again, it's not like I didn't deliver that as a crushing blow from the sky, because I'm just, I'm making like a reasonable argument.
Yeah.
I'm against this missile strikes in Syria. So don't try to paint me in the same blend, in the same brush that all neoconservatives are. Second of all,
Yeah, that again, he brought up that again. Careful for their foreign policy. He will be anti-interventionist, incredibly isolationist, incredibly pro-protectionism.
Yeah, but he's still saying like he's still saying like Donald Trump's doing a good job with his foreign policy when he's still,
So attack him on that. When he says something like I am anti blah blah blah. Okay, well, can I look up your Twitter history and see you criticizing Trump for bombing Syria? Then when Trump increased the drone strikes in Yemen, are you coming out again on him for that? When Trump bombed Syria's
he
airfield,
said that he said I'm against it.
But can you find? Is that on the public record? It's not. It might be for him. I'm not sure actually.
It might be.
But
No, he's like, it's weird. He's like really vehemently anti-Saudi Arabia. That is I know that.
Again, that's not weird. It seems weird, but for the new brand of conservatives, they will be anti-interventionism, anti-funding like Gulf states and shit, anti this type of like war behavior, anti-Iraq war even. Yeah, for the new conservatives, a lot of them are like that. You got to be real careful. Don't fall into their trap of thinking that they're like neoconservatives. They're not. They're very, very different than the traditional Republican establishment. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I hate the never Trump neocons more than I hate fucking. Actually, that's not true. I hate everyone even.
Yeah, sure. Just be ready for the new brand of talking points. It's different, and don't fall into the trap of not being ready for it.
Yeah.
this have to do with us lying to our veterans that we were going to take care of them and then letting Veterans Administration, which is socialized.
People got really mad that I said dog too. They were like so like, and that's when I know that I did a good job.
That was funny.
That's when I know I did a good job with the debate because like the majority of conservatives were like triggered. Like Art Tavana, that fucking guy from Playboy, was like mad that I kept saying dog. I was like, dude, what the fuck?
I love doing that shit. Like, come on, dog. You really believe that? Like, oh, dude, people get so fucking triggered. I love it. Yeah. No, that was funny. As soon as I heard you say that was some funny fucking shit when you said that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Disservice. Advocate for social life. I do not want the rest of the country. I'm not saying the VA is good. I'm saying that it's underfunded. That our veterans. You're using that as a tool that just attacks socialism. Attacks socialism. But this works in every other country that has tried to do this. This works. This isn't Cuba. How does the Cuban healthcare system work?
So this is a fucking great.
Real quick, don't. Okay, yeah. Sorry, keep going.
No, but here. Cuban healthcare system. The Cuban healthcare system? Oh, you mean the country where they're on the verge of solving AIDS and a multitude of different cancer research? Like, what are you talking about?
See, do you hear that? When I say that, no one, everyone's like, boo, fuck you. Cuba couldn't have possibly done that. Like, fuck you. They're socialists. But like the Cuban healthcare system is actually one of the more redeemable elements of like of communist Cuba in general.
Sure. I think that a better route to go here would be don't compare us to fucking Cuba. Compare us to Germany. Compare us to the United Kingdom. Compare us to Canada. Why do you always have to... Yeah, notice when he goes to compare us to something, he always has to reach for these countries that have a fuck ton of other problems that we never compare ourselves to otherwise, right? Like this is where you turn around and ask him, like, why is your standard for U.S. success better than Cuba? Why is your standard for the U.S. being a high achievement country, Zimbabwe? Why are you comparing us to these? Why not compare us to Germany, to any country in Europe? Like, keep hammering home like the list of countries that you should be comparing us to, not to fucking Zimbabwe and fucking Cuba. Like, Jesus.
I did mention Canada, by the way, for everyone who was like, no, you're not. But hold on. Yeah, I think right here. That's a lie. Like I didn't know that was a lie at the time. It didn't. I don't remember that fact off the top of my head. But that's a lie. The Cuban life expectancy is actually a year higher than the United States. I looked this up.
Yeah, because I knew this was wrong. Yeah, and technically that doesn't even necessarily support your argument because it could be that American life expectancy is lower because we've got more access to like foods and sugars and shit. But like regardless, like he was just completely wrong.
Yeah, because I didn't know that. That's why I said. That's why I didn't know the data. So see, like he already is like moved away. As soon as I said the Cuban healthcare system actually isn't bad, contrary to what you're saying. Hey, what's up, Three Arrows? When I said the Cuban healthcare system actually isn't bad, contrary to what you think, he immediately moves over. Then why are people fleeing Cuba to come to America? It's like.
No one fucking flees to the United States for our fucking healthcare. Like, especially not fucking poor as fuck. Not as poor as fuck Cubans, like fucking swimming over. Like, come on, dude.
But see, I'm like he like steamrolls over. I'm talking about comparable nations. Like But you're right. I should have focused on what comparable nations mean and go like, what do you mean? Why are we trying to compare ourselves to Cuba? In what element would you ever compare yourself to Cuba? Even though I would compare ourselves to Cuba because the Cuban healthcare system actually is more efficient and better, and it's a testament to what happens when you eliminate the profit motive, and medicine still does not fail. So.
But again, like the fact that you just had to say so much there means everybody won the debate, right? If you're gonna like just hammer home simple, you've got to focus on rhetoric in these types of situations, right? Easy talking points, easy gotchas, easy places where he's incorrect or making a bad point, and then just force him to talk. Like oftentimes the person that has to do like more defending of their point will just look like they have the weaker argument. Like it's just the natural how it works. Yeah.
Virtually identical. I think that Canada is a better example, and there are definite problems with the Canadian healthcare system. Again, due to privatization and due to underfunding and tripling the institutional.
So like right here, like don't undermine your own point ever. Don't ever do that. Don't give him that.
Yeah.
Like I would have just ended it with like if you end it with like why don't we compare ourselves to Canada? Their healthcare system is far better than ours. Like boom, and just leave it at that. Don't undermine your own talking part right after. Yeah.
Well, the reason why you're right. It's so silly. I'm like trying to be intellectually honest.
Big mistake.
When the fucking other side, you got lost a bit in your own tangents and sidebars because you understand there's nuance to reality, but your rhetoric needs to be reductive.
Yep.
As much as you don't like that. Yeah, and that's the worst part because I value intellectual honesty, even if I am against a completely disingenuous, complete like fucking propagandist. I kind of counter my own points because I think like it's a better, more defensible position if I'm like, I already admitted that a second ago. Mm-hmm. Why are you overlooking that? Let's talk about like what the failures are, or let's talk about why it's better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nothing is free, Hasan. 82% of Americans, 82% of Americans want Medicare for all. 52% of Republicans want Medicare for all. The only people at this point, who are standing firmly against Medicare for all, are just essentially saying, look, I don't care. I love public law. I think big pharma should continue to increase their profits, and it doesn't matter if you can't live a dignified life without the crippling fear that if you lose your job, you might lose your health care, and you might literally die. And if you can't fund your medicine, if you can't fund your health care, then you should beg on the internet through crowdsourcing. Again,
like I think I should stop there.
Yeah, real quick. So firstly, he shouldn't be allowed to interject his little zingers like that. That's bullshit. But secondly, again, like listening to these over and over again, it would be real awesome if you had ways to respond to them. So for instance, when you say like healthcare, this healthcare needs to be free. Obviously, we're talking about at the point of delivery. We're not talking. Nothing is obviously fucking free. That's a stupid fucking point. But like when he says like it's not free if your neighbor's paying for it, like to be able to quickly respond there. Well, if I get sick, my neighbor's going to pay for it one way or another, whether that's with the lost productivity, me not working, or whatever, and then just keep going on to your thing, right? Like being able to respond to those is like so important. And I think
you don't think I should steamroll and like deliver my point instead? Because I did every time that I try to counter his point, it actually hurts me because I have massive ADHD, so I'm already having a very hard time
dealing with
providing like free flow conversation. What?
Of dealing with a gish gallop, yeah.
Yeah, so it's like it's already difficult. So that's why I was like in this one I just went through it and I should have just stopped. I shouldn't have continued and went into like Candace Owens like sending out her best friend's GoFundMe page is just like so pathetic when your institution is arguing against this. Like you understand the problems.
Yeah.
You understand the problems and you have no solutions for it, and to me that's disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Implying that because I have a different policy perspective, care less people. The free market system. If you're against it, that's what you want. And say the sector and vertical. Okay, housing, or whether it be in food, or in any other free market, out to interact. Do not have a free market.
So stupid.
We have the FDA that disallows entrepreneurs to compete against big pharma. 30 years, so that people great idea. You think FDA regulation is bad for medicine? There are certain elements of regulation that are very specific. Let me finish. How about a 30-year patent drug to disallow a better idea that would bring down the middle class?
Something that corporate lobbyists have argued for. Obviously, I'm not in favor of patent regulation in this regard.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
that's the regulation that I'm against. No, I'm saying what I'm for. It's public. No, I think we should. Again, let me finish. All right, go ahead. Sorry, you're right. The free market allows us three really, really big things. It allows prices to go down, quality to go up, and go outward. Everywhere it's tried, whether it be
Oh my God! Stop. Okay, sorry. So some of these you can't just zinger, you just kind of have to know a little bit about it. This is such a bullshit fucking argument. There are a large number of reasons why healthcare is not comparable to fucking grocery stores, okay? The barrier to entry to establish a fucking hospital is much higher than starting a fucking grocery store. Look how many fucking grocery stores are near you, then look how many fucking hospitals are near you. Secondly, the type of services that are provided at both of these places are totally incomparable. If I'm having a fucking heart attack, I don't have time to pick out which best, like, fucking Trader's Surgeon General is the best fucking hospital for me to go and get fucking stitched up at.
Yeah.
These are ridiculous fucking comparisons. Because capitalism works in one scenario, therefore the free market will provide a solution to every scenario is such an absurd view of capitalism. It makes me embarrassed to defend capitalists, okay? This is such a fucking stupid comparison. You should never let him fucking walk with this. Oh, God, it was so dumb.
But then
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I don't think anyone's really hearing anything he's saying anyway.
Sure.
At that point, like, because even I lost track of what the fuck he was saying at that point. You're right. I should have dunked on him instead of focusing on the LASIK thing. But here's where I failed a little bit when I gave ground. Like, so that's the other thing that's really annoying. And I think I a couple different times where he kept saying, like, well, life is better, life expectancy is higher. It's like, yeah, that's due to exponential growth and also technological advancements as a consequence of both publicly funded and privately owned research. You can't just simply say that this is because of this mythological free market that caused our lives to be drastically better. It's really frustrating that he just keeps lying about this point.
You're talking
over and over again.
That when you hammer home, you do it a couple times. You could have done it even more, but when you do it a couple times, when you hammer home the internet thing, that was a really, really, really strong point.
Oh yeah, I love that one. Yeah, when he's like the military, I was like, okay, and then he fucking turned around and he was like, "Oh, are you saying that the Silicon Valley liberals are socialists?" And I was like, "No, the Silicon Valley didn't invent. Like, I'm not talking about the Silicon Valley. I'm talking about the military and publicly funded research creating the internet."
Yeah.
Everything you're saying is flat out and also false about because we live under a mixed economy, Charlie. So it's a consequence of both publicly funded research and also certain private elements. So when you try to turn around and look at technological advancements that are happening in virtually every field, okay, virtually every field on an international scale, and assume that this is just a free market capitalism, well, it's actually unicorns, dude. Unicorns are giving us magically this. Answer your question. We're gonna lie about this stuff, and we might as well just go all the way out. Does insurance population? Because when you don't
Can I do you a big favor real quick?
Yeah.
This is gonna trigger.
Never repeat his question.
This is gonna trigger the fuck out of you. Okay, hold on.
Do it.
I linked you a YouTube video. Can we watch this real quick? It's like 6 minutes long. It's gonna trigger the fuck out of you that like half of your debate here.
Oh, the John Stossel insurance makes healthcare far more expensive.
Yeah, have you watched this before?
No, I just saw it.
Okay, here, real quick, you can put it on put the speed to 1.5 times, and then we can just run through it. You're gonna see so many of his fucking arguments in this video. It's gonna drive you fucking crazy.
I mean, I could do. Also, remember that I have the full capacity of a studio behind me, so I could just go to TYT and do a side-by-side comparison in the aftermath just on that video alone. Because I'm going to go back to this debate and I'm going to do wrecked compies. You know what I mean? I'm going to do a bunch of compilations of capitalist cuck owned, doesn't know his points, or capitalist cuck lies about Cuban healthcare, doesn't realize the internet has fact-check shit like that.
Sure, yeah, sure, yeah. I would let me know when you have this video later. We'll just start at the same time. This is every single point is going to be in this video. It's insane.
Arguing in the country right now about President Obama.
Or I can just listen here.
More of our medical expenses and lower deductibles. But John Stossel argues that when people pay less, they eventually pay more.
Wait, what the fuck?
The singer, popular video saying,
what the fuck is this?
Politicians promise more health insurance.
There's a lot of
cover more people. But wait a second. Health insurance means someone else pays your bill when they have. There's more paperwork.
More here, everywhere. This is where some of the money goes. This stuff is not free.
This doctor pays 4 employees just to do insurance paperwork.
Oh my God.
15% of their income. But that's just the
bigger problem is that with insurance, someone else
foots the bill.
So patients often don't care what things cost.
They spend Some of them have to do this, do that, and some of the things they don't need to have done.
Insurance was designed for big catastrophes like cancer or heart attacks, but now people expect it to cover everything.
No, insurance historically wasn't designed to prevent big catastrophes. Insurance was designed as a mediator between, like, back in the day, in the aftermath of, like, around World War II, when you weren't allowed to increase your wages and there wasn't an element of competitiveness there. Insurance was additional benefits that companies could potentially provide, especially in an environment where there wasn't as, like, healthcare wasn't as accessible because of a lack of infrastructure and because of a lack of, like, hospital. Insurance companies were providing like intermediary support, and that kind of coverage genuinely did at that time allow to like create like a perfectly balanced price. But at the same time, it's completely useless at our point, in my mind. But it was in an effort to provide benefits to still remain competitive and skirt around the like World War II era loopholes. The World War II era regulation around wages. That's the real reason why we have insurance in America. Just so people don't know that. For the record, it's not just to do like more paperwork or whatever the fuck this doctor is talking about.
I asked the video singer, songwriter, you can get a slingshot at Walmart for about, just pay for it yourself.
Come on, everybody wants more and now and cheaper and better.
And we need healthcare.
I know.
We need shelter and groceries. But think about
that.
What if
What if you had grocery insurance? Hamburger, I'll just buy steak.
A hamburger, I'll just buy steak.
Why look for steak? I'll just buy everything. My insurance company's paying.
We'd make a lot more money. We could raise your prices. We definitely could.
John Mackey's founder of the chain.
This is insane. You can't compare insurance to fucking like commodities of this nature. I don't understand
This
how,
is where like all of
his
his talking points come from, like related
This
to
is
this
like
shit.
Ben Shapiro does this too. I love that they like hide behind they hide behind libertarian talking points every now and then.
Mm-hmm.
It is John Stossel, yes, by the way, who's, whatever.
Yeah.
Shopper's behavior.
Change shoppers' behavior.
They'd buy a lot more instead of buying a bottle.
Bottle of wine for $7.99, $300 bottle of wine. And yet this is how we pay for that.
I love that. Like, you can't do. There's no such thing as like getting too much insurance. Like, there's no such thing as getting too much healthcare, dude. Like, I don't understand this concept at all. By the way, whenever people are like, "Oh my God," well, if we had free healthcare, every single person would then go to the doctor and like ration insurance. It's not though, Subgobbler. Technically, there is, because healthcare is finite. Like, in the most simple argument that I would advance is like, I have insurance. Do you still like going to the doctor? No. And also you would technically be able to catch a lot of preventative through preventative care. If you were going to the doctor more frequently, you could technically catch a lot more of the larger debilitating illnesses that causes us to be not as efficient and also more expensive as far as healthcare goes. Like going to the doctor more frequently isn't necessarily a problem. I don't know. Maybe Destiny, you're a big capitalist. Maybe I'm wrong. You can correct me on this, but that's my perspective on it. Obviously, like in countries where people can afford, in countries where insurance is free or healthcare is free, obviously there's like longer wait times and whatever. But
yeah, so like things like wait times aren't really important. What I would look at are outcomes. And in terms of outcomes, it's not like the United States is like outcompeting anybody else like dramatically. There are a couple of things where we do pretty well in, and then there are some things that we don't do well in, but we also spend twice as much as every other country, like for healthcare. So yeah, I don't think that just going by wait times isn't a good way. Like people will bring that up. Anytime somebody says, well, in America, we've got longer wait times, you go, oh, cool. Well, is that causing people to die? Like, can you point to me? Why is it? Yeah.
No, they think that like you're going to go into the emergency room and they're days later bleeding right now, like that. That's the way they try to portray that narrative, and it's so ridiculous.
Yeah.
The wait times are for like larger surgeries.
Mm-hmm.
They're not like immediately like life-saving shit. Obviously, there's a difference.
Yeah,
but
and this
whatever.
idea that people are just gonna like run to the hospital because it's free, like over and over and over again, is a little bit silly too.
No, by the way, Miss Perez said Bernie has Canadian doctors, and even they said their wait times are long. No, Canadian wait times are actually a lot longer than the United States. They're longer than like the United States has shorter wait times on average. I think it's like 26% shorter or something. I'm not necessarily certain, but like part of that is because there are millions of people who can't fucking afford insurance, and then on top of that, there are still millions of people who even have that have insurance who still cannot afford their insanely high premiums. Like, it doesn't matter. The reason, the reason isn't like The solution isn't, oh, well, if you're sick, just don't go to the fucking doctor. It's so stupid.
Yeah.
Now the president said insurance companies should cover more. He wants to reduce copay.
Have I mentioned that the president is also black? The person who wanted to do this.
The amount your insurance company can force you to your own house.
That sounds nice. We can get free acupuncture. LASIK? Wait a second. That surgery is one of the few that insurance does not pay for. And guess what? LASIK keeps getting cheaper.
In every other field of medicine, prices going up faster than consumer prices in general. But the price of LASIK surgery on average is going down by 30%.
Prices drop because without insurance payments, patients shop around to get the best deal.
I can't get away with not telling people how much.
I can't believe that they're like, yeah, of course, insurance raises prices, but your alternative isn't to abolish insurance. I don't understand. Your alternative is to, right? Am I crazy about this?
No, so like one of the big things that sucks about the U.S., I didn't even learn this until like a few months ago. In the United States, one of the reasons why other healthcare systems like the NHS in the UK and the other social healthcare systems across the world, one of the reasons why they're so effective is because they actually have like price schedules where they can like set like this is the price for this drug. This is what we're going to pay for it, period. And in the United States, Medicare and Medicaid are specifically barred from being able to negotiate.
Oh, no, I know that. That's what I mentioned.
Yeah.
That's what I mentioned in our debate. As I assume that the reason why it's not insurance that's like, first of all, insurance is, of course, raising prices, so I don't think we should have it. But also, the biggest reason why our prices are so high is because we are the only country on the planet who does not have collective bargaining power over pricing, and that we just take the fixed prices that the insurance companies, the pharmaceutical companies give us.
That will work well. And a difference of $100 sometimes makes their decision for them.
Started thinking, well, what am I getting for this price?
Carolyn Schmidt also thinks about price because now she has to pay for routine care. She works for John Mackey's grocery chain, which offers health savings accounts that include high deductible insurance. If workers get cancer or heart disease, insurance pays. But for the smaller stuff, they pay.
It's my money.
When marketing director Marianne Buttrose went to the doctor, she never used to ask.
I love when they do this. They just like talk over a point. They're like, oh, well, here's free market working perfectly well for this one specific thing. And then they just like talk about like ridiculous details, you know what I mean, that have nothing to that have nothing to do with the actual with the actual problem itself. It's so stupid.
And now it matters to me. My money.
At last, I can go to that acupuncturist. At last, I can spend the money the way I want to spend it. You try this new system, and what happened? Our cost went way down because it changed behavior. They started asking how much things cost. They may not want to go to the emergency room. They wake up with a hangnail in the middle. They didn't ask what things cost before. Why should they? Somebody else is paying for it.
Carolyn Schmidt used her account when she wanted to get a physical. Since it was her money, she shopped around, found prices varied by hundreds of dollars.
If I had regular insurance, I would have never called around and asked for prices.
Like, imagine thinking that you can call around prices if you're like in desperate need of a new kidney. Like, oh, hold on. Oh, this is $1,000 at this hospital. Let me just go to a different one. It's so fucking stupid, dude. Also, what the fuck is up with this dude's nail? Oh no, it's just the phone.
Computer programmer Mark Bourne has 4 kids, insurance policy with a $5,000 deductible. So he wants to know what things cost. When I blogged about how insurance raises costs, he emailed to say insurance makes it impossible for him to find out what things cost.
Yeah, imagine if it was free. Now imagine if it was free, dog. Just imagine. Because again, whenever these people are talking about capitalism and like the problems within our capitalist pricing,
Physician themselves, never. So they may refer me to front. But they usually don't know what to cost either. Every other service that I use, they tell me what it costs. But with healthcare, it's not like that. It's just a crapshoot.
He can't even find out what things cost. Right, that's a big part of the problem.
oh my god.
Oh, Michael Tuffin speaks for the health insurance law. We've had a system arise over many years that is not transparent. It's not transparent because of you. Here's a graph of how what the person pays has dropped and how healthcare costs have risen. Isn't one causing the other? Well, there's no question there needs to be some personal responsibility. When you're involved, there's less personal responsibility.
But I have a graph in front of me, sir.
When we're involved, there's protection against the devastating cost of serious illness. But don't you admit this does cause people to overuse healthcare? No, I don't think people are waking up in the morning going, gee, how do I get myself into the hospital? No, of course not. And it's good that insurance covers catastrophe. But when insurance pays for everything, customers can't push providers to lower costs.
I have almost no ability to influence. I have no ability to say to Dr. A, I don't like the price of your service. I'm going to Dr. I just can't do it. And the reason is because somebody else. Why on earth, for healthcare, do we as a society think somebody else should pay for it? We don't think of that about groceries. We don't think that about coffee. We don't think that about.
I wonder why, dude.
Okay, but we
like,
do it. But that's not even true. We do that for groceries. We do that for other things. If you can't afford like housing or whatever, we have Section 8 housing. If you can't afford food, we do have EBT and food stamps. Why would he say we don't do this? We absolutely do this. What the fuck are you talking about? Like, that's such a stupid point.
Not only do we do this, but the further that point is like, we understand that insurance works, right? Like we understand how insurance works, or at least people understand how that works. Simply nationalizing some form would obviously make it better. Would force every single person to go into that same pool, right? Isn't that like my perspective has always been that it's probably a better system. I'm a NHS boy, so I think we should have a national healthcare service, 100%. But like I'll concede to Medicare for all for now, and I'll also concede to Medicare Plus if necessary. If people want to get like private insurance on top of that, they should be able to do so, especially because it's America and like it's impossible to fucking it's impossible to push for like an immediate, like very serious socialized medicine alternative. But it's just it's so silly. Not only is it silly because we already do that for all of these other programs, and he's like outright lying, and Stossel's obviously not going to correct it because it goes for his goes with his perspective. But then on top of that, like I said, if you understand how insurance works, then you understand that like it's an identical concept of like having a safety net applied to the entire country would be more beneficial, especially if it wasn't guided by a profit motive, and the only incentive was actually for the government to make sure that everyone was as healthy as possible, ethically at least. I don't know. Please take an example of Kyle Kalinske when it comes to debating. At some points in the debate, you had the opportunity to destroy Kirk on the fact that his donor is a super PAC donator and supporter of the Koch brothers, for example. But you let that opportunity slip. However, you improved since last year, which is good progress. Yeah. Oh, shit. I love that they also put this, like, dumbass fucking video here, too. But, yeah. Here.
Okay. See, you see how he's repeating points from the video?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A key component of a market is pricing. Yeah, problem with that. And we live in a country that is virtually the only country on the planet that does not negotiate drug prices. Even Donald Trump said he was going to do this, and he's failed to deliver on that promise. Among many other promises, like he was going to solve the economy, or that he was going to bring about world. Like, this is preposterous to assume that, like, insurance, you can just unjustifiably just throw out a claim without expecting me to refute it. When you say, when you make this ridiculous assertion that insurance companies are actually decreasing prices when it's not the government. No, they're not. Regulated. It's not very specific. Basic advice. But then you follow covered by insurance. Okay. Consumers want straightforward. They do. Therefore, prices, quality went up, and accessibility went outward. That's what happens when a market is allowed to exist. So imagine virtually every. Because I know the ins and outs of the complicated LASIK surgery, and I'm going to the U.S. There's no. But it doesn't matter. Look.
I want to start off a video with just me saying that after, and then play it side by side with the part of that video that you just showed me. It's so good. Oh my God! Thank you for that.
Are all Americans? Is this the most important problem that all Americans face when it comes to our current obesity rate? When it comes to the cancer rate in the U.S., we're good on cancer if you can afford it. So how do you get things to cost less? Competition, which is inherent. Regulation. Absolutely. Regulation prices out middle.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. Like,
regulations a tool used by corporations to go after small businesses. That is why the small business are like Pfizer. You're right, dude. Pfizer has your being.
Okay, so real quick, these are really important talking points to be aware of. So, are you familiar? Do you know what rent-seeking behavior is?
What? Rent-seeking behavior?
Yeah. So
no, what is?
So and if I'm wrong on this, if I'm getting this incorrect, someone can correct me. But like rents are basically where, let's say that it would cost a company $1 million to do something in its industry, to innovate or something in its industry. They could do $1 million to do that, or it could pay $400,000 to the government in order to price out competitors. Right? This is considered rent-seeking behavior. It's when you're incentivized to pay the government something. Right? So what he's talking about here, it's just good to be like really aware of all these arguments. What he's talking about here, when you say that regulation prices out small businesses, what he's referring to is the idea that if you install some sort of regulations, those regulations are going to be lobbied for by big companies, and that form of rent-seeking behavior, the only type of regulations that will exist are some that will disincentivize small businesses from competing. That's the argument that he's making here.
Yeah, well, my perspective on that, and I should, okay, this is good to know. But my counter in that instance is like, this isn't necessary. It's not like there are small business owners in the form of like pharmaceutical companies that are desperately trying to price out, like bigger companies. It doesn't work that way at all because like the pharmaceutical corporations are like inherently large businesses, and that's when I'm referring to regulation in that instance, I'm referring to antitrust, and of course I'm referring to prices as I demonstrated in my earlier talking, and I probably should clarify it a little bit better. But then like this is the thing that genuinely triggers me was like when he says, well, here.
Budget. Yeah, I hate that. We agree on that. Corporatism. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, so like when he's talking about $100 million government lobbying budget, it's like, dude, I know, but I don't want that. And then now we're going to move into Citizens United.
Mm-hmm.
You have a good idea versus sending them to DC, sending rules and regulations that I can afford. People like Silicon Valley. So why is it cheaper in other countries, Charlie? Explain that to me. If it's not government price negotiations, why is it cheaper in virtually every other country? As a matter of fact, this is a ridiculous.
I should have just I should have just let him try to answer that.
Yeah.
I should just let him try to answer that, and I would have been like, you can't answer it. He would have tried to fucking pivot away.
Instead of giving him something else to go on, yeah. Okay, real quick, this might trigger the fuck out of your audience, okay? And it triggers the fuck out of mine. Citizens United, that is a very fucking hard case to argue against. Both sides to this have very good arguments. I don't know what the correct answers are. Be very careful.
Abolish freedom of speech.
If you're comfortable, doing that. Like, so if you're full on lefty, then it's easy. But 90% of your audience are still going to be liberals. You know, whether right, as opposed to true lefties. So don't be very careful getting dragged into a Citizens United argument. That's a very fucking tough one.
Yeah, no, because his I know his counterpoint here because I had a private conversation about it, but. People are like already triggered. It's
like because what he says about your company is very true. And so like a standard example I'll give is like, let's say that a conservative is running on a platform of anti-climate change, and I'm going to release a documentary related to climate change. Am I all of a sudden banned from doing that now? Like 90 days before an election, I can't release a documentary about climate change because it's considered electioneering or whatever, or because I'm donating.
Well, that's literally how the Citizens United decision came to be, right? It was a Hillary. It was an anti.
Mm-hmm. So I'm just saying
documentary.
That's a really tough one to argue. You got that you can have a 3-hour conversation plus on just some aspects of Citizens United. Be really careful about getting sucked into a debate over that.
Some of your fans or also fans of mine are saying, "Oh no, don't." John's audience is a bunch of far left socialist lip cucks.
I have a lot of lefties in my audience now, but just saying that's a really hard one.
I understand. Like, I understand. Like, even if I don't necessarily mind people arming themselves, for example, I still think that the Second Amendment is an absolute disaster in the face of like any sort of formidable like legislation that would potentially make it safer and better regulated for people to own weapons. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And the same thing goes for our current understanding of freedom of speech. I'm not saying like drop all of it, right?
Sure, yeah.
But what I'm simply suggesting is like we might have to abolish it or amend it. You know what I mean?
For the most part, maybe not Charlie, but I am willing to hear your perspective. Conservatives, for the most part, have like completely decided that.
Real quick, just kind of reaffirming what I said earlier. So, Oi or whatever in your chat brought up what I'm saying, that like every single time you corner him, he will always like ask you a question. Just.
Oh, I didn't think of that, lady. Thank you. Right, yeah.
Because if he's keep in mind that these people have done this before, right? If somebody is going to ask you a question, the reason why they're doing that is because they know which answer you're going to give, so they've already got their response prepared. You want it anytime you're in a debate with somebody, if they ask you a question that seems very obvious. So, for instance, if somebody says like, do you think socialized healthcare is good? You have to know that if you answer yes to that they're ready to go into something, right? So
for sure.
Yeah, so anytime you're doing a conversation with somebody and you pose them a difficult question and they ask you a question in return, don't ever let them get away with that, because when they ask you a question, they know how you're going to answer and they're ready to launch into the next.
Prosecuting. It's a tactic. Like he's about to cross-examine. Up with an answer. He does it a lot. He did that a lot.
Oh yeah, he does this all the time.
I think it was like my confidence that got in the way.
Sure.
My confidence that got in the way because I was like, I don't give a fuck. Like I'll fucking nail this dude.
Yeah. But that's because he's thinking on a different level, on another level, not like a higher or lower, but he's thinking rhetorically, and you're thinking fact based. You can't do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
far as to say that we are subsidizing healthcare for the rest of the world because we are the most innovative nation when it comes to medicine. It's preposterous. Every other nation is able to do this, and these companies are still selling to them. Obviously, they're not selling out of the goodness of their heart because there's no such thing. It's all profit, right? So they're capable of lowering drug prices here in the United States as well. But the only reason why they won't, and you're correct on this, I will tell you, because obviously I'm very anti-lobby here and anti-corporatist and anti-capitalist as well, which, by the way, lobbying is inherently a capitalist.
I purposely am conflating capitalism with corporatism here because that is my genuine perspective, and I think that pissed him off a lot. Yeah. No, oh, fuck, did I?
Okay, so there's plenty of countries affected economic.
Wait, what the fuck? Where did I?
Country to absolutely fail. Like, it's ridiculous. It's such a system. Maybe the ones.
Wait, what?
And women, your fellow bro. Again.
Whoa, where the fuck do we go?
You can't. No. My God. First of all, can I just hold on. No, you can't just let him.
Oh, here, fuck it. All right, well, whatever. I don't know where that is. The anti-corporatist. I think I fucked up, dude. I don't know what happened. God damn it. Regulation, LASIK. Oh, it was after LASIK, I think, right?
Like, you can't. The two go hand in hand. Those are not the same thing. That's like saying crony capitalism is just
I should have waited for him to say fucking an analogy because it's clear that he didn't have it.
better capitalism, and you are constantly on the one hand arguing against regulation, and then on the other hand saying, well, it's not true capitalism. Which one is it? Okay, so regulate capitalism so it doesn't turn into crony capitalism. I think we should massively deregulate the.
Another good parallel here, anytime you can attack his arguments with his own words is really strong. Another good thing to do here would have been like, why is it that when capitalism fails, you have a different word for it, but when communism fails, it's true communism, right? Because anytime somebody points to a failure of communism, they're going to say, well, look what happened under Mao and Stalin, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, cool. Well, look what's happening with capitalism today. That's not real capitalism. That's crony capitalism. You're literally no true Scotsman in your own fucking economic system. Like, end yourself. Like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah. That's really good. Yeah.
Regulation specifically, except for like the patent one, which I'm on board with. What regulation specifically? How about Dodd-Frank? That'd be a great start. That
has nothing to do with fucking. That has nothing to do with the medicine at all. Like, it has nothing to do with.
But it doesn't matter. It gives him a chance to go into his next talking point, right?
Yeah. But I got excited. See, instead of saying you're running away from my point right now, Charlie.
Yep, you're ready because you're confident to talk about not realizing that he's just playing word games. Basically.
He's playing into my trap, which is like, I'll fucking own you on Dodd-Frank. So my confidence got in the way because I'm like, I'm well versed in all of these subjects, and I will absolutely destroy you on all of your talking points. But instead, if I was a little laid back and a little bit more conservative, and I just fucking waited for him to try to run away again and then kept pointing that out, which I do later down in the debate where I'm like, you keep running away from my talking points. A couple times I mentioned it. Instead, I started doing that and established that he keeps doing it and pointing out his debate tactics, which is a necessity, which is really funny because this is the same exact pointer I gave Cenk before he debated Ben Shapiro. And it's the same exact pointer I gave Cenk before he's about to debate Tucker Carlson. Is like, always point out their debate tactics because it's impossible in the current setting to defeat someone who is gish galloping and also cherry picking data.
Yeah.
You can't do that. It is purposely created, especially if they're talking really fast. It's purposely created to generate as many highlights as possible and to make it seem like you're owned because you have a limited amount of time to respond.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you and I both know this.
Yeah.
Because we've done it enough times, or I haven't really done it enough times that I analyze conservative propaganda all the time. But yeah.
Big banks broke down. That is why we've seen an 80% decrease in community banks over the last 8 years since it makes it nearly impossible for community banks to be able to get to Wall Street. I will say what Charlie fails to mention with Dodd-Frank is like, not interrupt you. No, what Charlie fails to mention.
I did not interrupt you is ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't say this and not mention this part. There are plenty of fail-safes within Dodd-Frank, which was imperfect, I will admit. There are plenty of fail-safes that were also taken away. For example, the fiduciary responsibility. So if you're an old person and you go up to a bank, that your banker can virtually make any sort of risky financial decision they want, because they took that away so that the bankers could make more money off of your money that they're playing around with. This is the kind of deregulation that already caused the 2008 housing. All right, I'm not going to get into this. You're not going to
This is so fucking smart of him, dude. I should do this. Oh my god. So I have a problem when I debate. So my goal generally is because I want to find out what is the most true thing. That's typically what I'm interested in. If somebody brings up something and I don't know about it, I'll usually say so much like, oh well, I don't actually know about this as much. Like I need to do more research here. Like I'll come back and look at it. But I shouldn't do that. Because what he does is he'll say oh well, I don't want to get into that, and then pivot. Like, it's so much better. It's a better rhetorical technique to pivot the way that he's doing it. It's so smart.
I'll give you a tip then about that. You can do this thing where you go, hey, you know what? I don't think you and I are going to solve this problem right now. So why don't we move on to something that we can actually discuss?
Sure, yeah.
Something like that. It's like a good pivot. I don't know. I've heard people use that before. But yeah, like I said, he's just like trying to pivot away, and then I call him out on it. But again,
Lowering interest rates. Hold on, Fannie and Freddie, genius. What's Fannie and Freddie? Tell me what that is. Tell me about the rating agencies. Tell me about how we should have allowed Wells Fargo to pay a price. Those people should be in prison right now.
Notice now he's got another. It sounds like I haven't watched it, but I'm guessing this is like The Big Short. Like he's summarizing the whole movie. That's kind of what it sounds like. He just launched in another tirade or whatever. To pretend also that none of this was incentivized by like capitalist mentality is also really fucking hilarious. Like a lot of the shit was literally driven on by fucking investment banking. But I mean, okay, like.
No. He's attacking the industry of banking as liberals, but from a leftist perspective right now, which is hilarious. And then just saying that it's actually not because of a profit motive or a financial incentive caused by like our understanding of the capitalist structure surrounding banking, but instead because not enough free market. Mm-hmm. I guess. Zero. He doesn't even mention why it's not like he doesn't even mention why. That this isn't incentivized within our current capitalist structure. He doesn't even say that. He just says Alan Greenspan and a bunch of other fucking bankers should be in jail.
This is something where like, and I know this is hard to do like in the moment, but like this is something where like if you have more knowledge in him, like oh my god, I am 100% confident that if you were to ask him a question about anything he's talking about, he would be totally fucking lost. If you were to ask him like, well, why did the credit agencies rated them the way they did? He might try to do like some demagogue thing like, well, because regulation, but like he won't have a real answer and he would look really bad trying to because it's very clear right now that he's reciting like some script that he's memorized about this.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I love that.
Jail bankers, I'm on board, dog. Let's do it right now. Over each other the next 45 minutes, or you can let me.
I like this. Let me finish. What a piece of shit.
Yeah, no, he's fucking garbage.
Biggest misrepresentation of free market capitalism portrayed in 2008 It was the rating agency.
I love this. I love that it's like it's not deregulation that caused the 2008 financial crisis. Come on.
AAA bond rating with B and B minus rated bonds. No one looked what they were actually rating. It was the government institutions that were telling Wall Street to continue to go after subprime mortgage lending. They did credit default swaps on top of it, leveraging the entire American economy with Alan Greenspan.
Why does he think the government told the banks to do this? Like, does he think that the government created mortgage-backed securities, or does he think that the government is the institution that told people, to start like packaging them up in CDOs? Did the government tell people to like? This is so strange.
Yeah, no, it was big government that was like, we need bankers to make more money.
Yeah,
that's what they did. I guess he's trying to bring it back to the Fed by saying like quantitative easing somehow played into this. I don't know how that would even.
Oh, well, so the argument here. So basically the idea is that the Federal Reserve rates were so low. People like to buy U.S. Treasury bonds.
Oh, yeah,
True, right? When the T-bond rates were so low, people around the world were looking for other forms of safe investments. And that's when Wall Street realized that they could package mortgages up into these complicated investment vehicles to sell to the world as quote-unquote safe investments, right? And that's why with the way the bond rating agencies worked, with the way that they were all trounced out in a way that they were, and the way that real estate costs are always increasing in the United States. So even if somebody did fail a loan, the bank could repo the house and then resell it at a higher value, right? People blame, well, people partially, there's blame that goes all around. To pretend that this is one thing, it's not just capitalism, it's not just regulation, there's a large like intersection of problems that made that whole housing crisis happen, but that if you want to be really reductionist, people say, well, Greenspan lowered the interest rate so much that people had no choice but to make these crazy investments, which is bullshit, but it is part of the reason.
Choice?
Yeah, exactly, it is part of it, though, that's part of it. But I mean, like, our monetary policy isn't designed to optimize for fucking investors. Like, that's not fair to say that either.
Yeah.
Money, compare that with the Community Reinvestment Act, and no one actually knowing what they're trading.
I don't like liberal.
Washington.
We're on the same page, but you sound like a communist when you make those points. I'm just going to let you know. When you're like, let's jail bankers, let's regulate both our politicians and also the regulation.
I think that was a good, like, I didn't even, like, honestly, you said this was a weak one. Subgobbler doesn't think this is good, but
no, I thought that was okay. I thought this was okay.
I thought it doesn't ring true to anyone, says Subgobbler. No, but like the point that I was trying to make there is like, look, I like what you're saying here. You are saying exactly what I would be saying about this instance, but then your subscription again is just deregulation, or more capitalism, more true free markets, without including a single fact that this would prove to be better. And I can give you 100 different facts on why it's not, because deregulation and this like weird notion of free market capitalism will help out in this industry, help out in this specific instance where it was a big causal factor, maybe not necessarily the only one, but a big factor in why this happened, is ridiculous. It's kind of like when if your house is, I know it's a false analogy, I guess, but like it's kind of like if your house is on fire and your solution is, well, you know what, we should just light it on fire more with gasoline and burn it down on the ground. Which I didn't make that argument, but anyway.
Keep mentioning the failures of capitalism, and then your solution to the failures of capitalism is more capitalism, more free market. Failure of statism. Well, you know how about the successes of free market capitalism? The fact that we have a bunch of...
See, he went back. He like immediately, as soon as I fucking put him on his back with that statement, he immediately was like, well, how about the successes of capitalism?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
like,
back to the dialogue tree.
Back to
so like I don't know if you noticed, but like
base point
for this could have been a solo YouTube video of his. He doesn't respond to any argument you make. He has like 30 or 40 different dialogue trees, and all he's waiting is for you to say a certain keyword to activate another line of speech. That's all he's doing right now. He hasn't engaged with you at any point. Yeah.
The fact that we have more food than we grow every single year, and we actually eat. Wait, exactly. You think that's a good thing? You think that our waste is a good thing?
And then, like, the thing that sucks is that, like, if he's bringing these points up, you can't get sucked into it because it's just like a win. It's a rhetorical win for him every time. Because notice how he totally pulled you off of the point that you had before, and now you're going to start arguing about crude oil. He totally pulls you off of everything. Yeah.
Yeah. He also always, like, counters me before I get in. Knows the punchlines coming out, but I always respectfully allow him to finish his point for the most part, unless he's saying something so erroneous or so ridiculous that I can't let him fucking go along and like build a narrative around it, and that's the only time I interject. But he knows exactly whenever I'm about to make a point, he will interrupt as best as he possibly can.
Yeah.
Not a scarcity problem. Yeah, in Venezuela, the average Venezuelan 17 pounds. Oh, yes.
Look, watch this fucking dipshit, dude. When I said Venezuela, yes, look at his reaction.
4,000%.
He's fucking such a nerd, dude.
Yes. Break on the Civil War. Venezuela, the only socialist country on the everybody. Yes, the fact they have 42% unemployment. Yes, the fact that Maduro continues to exploit his citizens around the lies of Karl Marx. Yes, is that what we're talking about? Yes. I love that you think you own. Oh my God. First of all, can I just let him. Okay,
notice how when he ends all of his statements, he always ends it on a really powerful zinger. He always ends it on like a when he explaining by the lies of Karl Marx. Bam, and then he ends it, and then he leaves it back at you after he's gish galloped 15 points. It looks so powerful. He looks so.
Well, the best part about his points are that like they have nothing to do with anything.
Yeah,
like,
but again,
like, I know things about Venezuela, so communism bad. It's like, what the fuck? You didn't tell me
but
a
it doesn't
single
matter.
reason why Venezuela is in the situation that it's in.
Doesn't matter. It looks so powerful rhetorically. He ends all of his statements on his strong points because he's rehearsed all of. It's kind of funny.
And by the way, he's looking at his guys right now.
Yeah,
looking
of course.
At his
because he's done. He's like a literal NPC, right? He's ran down his dialogue tree. He finished his statement, and now you're going to flounder at the end here, and then he's going to pick up on one other keyword you say, and then launch into another dialogue tree. This is the entire conversation. Yeah.
And no, socialism is not my position. I mentioned it before. There are certain socialist elements that I talk about within my argument in an effort to defend socialism. But overall, my defense, my counter to Charlie's points are social democracy, which I still think is and like obviously I've been launching attacks on free market capitalism regardless, but in the profit motive, and also there are specific instances where I start talking about profit and wages, like wage theft, wage exploitation. So there are plenty of parts about it that are actually Marxist. There are plenty of Marxist roots within my conversation, but when it comes to like healthcare or like the overarching umbrella that I want to sell my ideas under, I sell it under social democracy, which for a lot of people I think is more palatable because I'm trying to fucking sell it as best as I possibly can, while still maintaining that the most important elements that are inherently broken and oppressive within within our capitalist structure are still argued against perfectly well. So when people, just leftists get so fucking mad at me when I do this. They get so mad. People are like, "Oh, you're not arguing for socialism. You're arguing for a social democracy." It's like, yeah, dude, I know what I'm doing. Let me do it, please. Like, this is literally what I do for a living.
Sure.
That's exactly the right strategy. But explaining that there's a big difference between socialism and social democracy is hard. No, it's not. I mentioned it in my in the when he was like naming fucking countries. Anyway,
I would be careful. There are a couple times in this debate where I think you conflate the two. I would be careful of that. I guess it depends on what your strategy is. But like, so for instance, when you bring up like a socially funded systems like healthcare, technically that's not really socialism, right? That has nothing to do with workers owning the means of production or anything like that. That's just redistribution policies, right? Yeah.
Yeah. My thing is like my perspective, and I think I mentioned it later down the chat where look, man. Like there's no like philanthropic business owner, or there's no boss who will give you back your wages that are yours. Okay, so I'm all in for a redistribution, and that redistribution has to happen at the state level. And if it's going to happen as with like through democratic means through the state level, it has to happen at a marginal rate.
Yeah.
That's always been my perspective, and I don't like it's like socialism from within, I guess. I don't know, but it doesn't matter. Sure. Anyway, but like, yeah, socialized medicine and whatnot, I interchangeably use. That's, yeah. Lucivan says, what I found interesting is the times that Charlie went silent. It's always when you had a really good point, you couldn't answer, but then went silent and then let you pivot your own strong point until he found something to cut back in with talking points. Yeah, he did do that a lot. He did. I noticed that. But yeah, he fucking went vuvuzela really quickly. Okay. So he's like, and then fucking this debater tries to interject and like stop me from responding.
When he brought
which is
up,
insane.
When he brought up at the end there, so I'm very, very confident that this guy probably doesn't know anything about Marx at all. When he brought up at the end that like Venezuela was doing horrible things because of Marx to its people, that would have been a good time to ask him, like, really? What did Marx advocate for that Venezuela is implementing that you think is causing the country to have so many problems? Like, he absolutely would not be able to answer that question. Guaranteed.
Well, he wouldn't say like, he'd probably say nationalization of oil fields, like extraction industries. I don't know. And then he would I know what he would say. He would have said fucking socialism, and then on top of that he would have launched like a bunch of different things like, oh well, socialism actually hoards a lot of wealth at the top, and like socialism is all about like being a part of the Politburo and all this other stuff. It doesn't need to make sense. Look at how fucking smug he is, by the way. Can you see?
Yeah, of course. Well, yeah, I mean, he just finished a really strong point rhetorically. I'm sure he feels good about it.
It's not though. If you fucking like looked at this for more than 3.5
rhetorically, not factually, rhetorically.
Yeah.
He ended a long series of like machine gun statements with a big boom at the end.
Oh, it's so fucking stupid. What do you do when like all the stupid people think this is a good conversation?
You've got to fight rhetorically.
Yeah, I got to be as fucking dumb.
Okay, all right. You can just let him throw away the Republican Despacito, which is every single time the dirty S word is mentioned, it's like, oh, Venezuela. Dude, I get it. You can't. No. You got to let me talk.
Oh, I need a job.
You did your dance and you said Venezuela. You got it out, and I'm glad you did. I'm glad you did. It's the ultimate defense. Like I said, Venezuela has virtually the same Venezuela has socialized its extraction industries, which is why it is extremely comparable to a Nordic country like Norway. If socialism successfully is implemented, or at least social democracies are successfully implemented in countries like Norway, then some countries fail because they're corrupt or because of currency mismanagement or because of a variety of different reasons like the IMF or American sanctions or even backing military coups in the country, which Donald Trump, apparently the world leader in peace, is toying around with as if that has worked ever in Latin American countries or anywhere worldwide. Like, there are a multitude of different reasons why a more robust social state has not worked in Venezuela, but it obviously has been successful in other countries. Like Zimbabwe, Cuba, Vietnam.
So immediately, same talking points over and over.
Yep.
Also, my problem is like, look, I over describe. Like, socialism is the Republican Despacito is like something I came up with. It's like a meme I came up with. Alexa, I feel sad, play Despacito, like that fucking meme. So it's like always, Alexa, I feel sad, play Venezuela. And that's like clear and concise. Even if you don't fully understand what that means, you kind of get what I'm trying to say. You know what I mean? Sure. But like, and then I describe like all of the reasons why it didn't work. Venezuelan socialism on the same line as Scandinavian socialism. Yeah, I guess I shouldn't have even put them as comparable, Venezuelan socialism and Scandinavian socialism. But my point was, like, some economic systems fail because of a multitude of different reasons. Others are obviously successful. Venezuela is not a comparable Venezuela is not comparable to the United States any more than like Norway is. You know what I mean? And I guess that like counters my own argument. Because it's like overall is difficult to compare nations to one another in regards to the services, but he didn't even argue against that. So, you said socialism failed, but also successful conservatives are triggered. Anyway, but yeah.
North Korea, former Bulgaria, former Belarus, East Germany, Soviet Union, those were great test cases.
Because like my point always has been like it I do agree with that. But then, of course, like there are certain reasons. It's not just one reason why it works in other countries. There's a multitude of reasons why it works. There's a multitude of reasons why it doesn't work in other countries. Mm-hmm. So like, you can't compare these like ridiculous, like North Korea and all these other kinds of nations, kind of nations, and say like every time we want to institute like any form of socialized policies, it's going to fail, just like North Korea.
I'm glad that you know countries. I'm glad that you are demonstrating that despite our public education system, you are still knowledgeable on different. Stop naming countries and let me finish, okay? All right. So ridiculous, dude. At this point, you guys all have to be aware that this is a ridiculous. Right? There are plenty of socialized countries around the planet. It's not just Venezuela. And also, let me tell you another thing, okay? When Nordic countries want to implement social democracies or democratic principles, it doesn't matter because the United States can't impose on them, and the United States can't go and bomb them. The United States can't implement coups in their countries. And look at that, it freaking works, dude. It works. Maybe we should stop meddling in foreign affairs all around the world and allow these countries to do whatever they want. You can virtue signal as much as you want. Agree. You can talk about virtue signaling. Here's what's virtue signaling: acting like you care about Venezuela, acting like you care about the interests of Venezuela.
I do care about Venezuela.
Yeah, if you did, you wouldn't be in support of an administration that is trying to put sanctions on Venezuela, a country that is already crippled. Like, it's a corrupt government. I'm sure there's an authoritarian element to it. I'm not the biggest fan of Maduro either. But you can't sit here and be like, oh, Venezuela, just to talk about socialism when your fellow men and women, your fellow brothers and sisters are dying in this country, and you want to stop socialized medicine from happening here. All right, so again, so you're
come on, that's a fucking. You don't think that like I ended that on a powerful point and like look at the reaction?
Yeah, no, that was
in
good.
comparison.
Yeah, that was good.
In comparison to the fucking shit that he says, he could just literally turn around and be like, the GDP is high, and people, oh, that's so fucking dope.
No, I think you did well here. That was good.
Yeah.
And I would say the free market system will never work with socialized medicine. Obviously, that's the reason why we're here. Like, that's the reason why. That's the reason why.
Explain to me though that why people.
Notice how he's doing it again? He didn't answer anything you just said. He's going to ask you another question to send you down another dialogue tree.
Yeah, it's fucking dialogue tree. I love reverting. They are NPCs, dude.
Yeah.
It's fucking awesome. It's so fucking awesome. And now I'm looking at your chat and people are saying, Dad, are you proud of me? Can we perform incest now too? Jesus Christ. Y'all are a bunch of fucking savages, dude. Where was it?
That's the reason why.
We need to go to West Germany. People.
Oh shit, yeah, here.
Obviously, that's the reason why we're here. Like, that's the reason why.
So can you explain to me though that why people did everything they could to flee East Germany to go to West Germany? People flee Cuba, Miami, Florida, or Venezuela for free market system.
Why are they coming to America? Yeah, every immigrant's like, I'm coming to America for the free market system. Maybe the one.
Yeah, like what? That's ridiculous. I mean, I think too, where you were like, no one's coming to America for whatever, like the free market or the benefits of the free market. I think it'd be ridiculous to say that as an immigrant who's coming to America from a more socialized nation. Like, that's not necessarily the reason why I'm here.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? It's marketing. America's very good at marketing. America's very good at cultural imperialism. There's a multitude of different reasons why people want to come to America. But like, to be like, oh, well, you know, I don't know. To be like, oh, well, it's the free market economy that doesn't even necessarily exist in America. That's the reason why I'm coming there. Is like a silly fucking notion.
They're also fleeing.
They're leaving violence that we caused. They're leaving violence that we largely were responsible for. Like the Honduran caravan, for example.
Let me ask you a question.
I thought the Honduran caravan would like trigger him into also going in to talk about that, but he didn't.
No, he'll never take your baits. Remember, he is never going to engage on any of your points. If you watch the debate, he hasn't engaged with anything you've said. He's just trying to run you down different dialogue trees. That's all he's doing. That's his whole goal.
it's so fucking annoying. How do you deal with that? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Without
that's
addressing.
why I said, like, if you keep asking a question over and over again and it becomes clear that he's not able to answer, then you can just point to that, because he won't be able to answer questions because he's not engaging with you at all. He's just running you down different trees.
Yeah.
Who is funding right-wing paramilitary groups just because they're capital and they love?
So tell me, so you're
Like, see, I asked him a question. So tell me.
Yep.
Immediately fucking turns around.
Yeah.
Another question.
the reason what U.S. intervention? So the distinction between
It's not
South
the
Korea.
reason. I'm not a dummy. I don't think there's a singular reason for an entire country to absolutely fail. Like, it's
No, let me
ridiculous.
ask you a question. South Korea
You're the only one
exists
saying
today
it.
because of intervention. North Korea lives in darkness.
It's not
South
just
Korea
because of U.S. intervention, Charlie. There are multiple.
Just the fact that social evil work.
Like, his answer, his multiple reasons is socialism is evil. Socialism doesn't work. It's just fucking crazy to be like,
It's real
he's-
dumb. Yeah.
Yeah.
Proper incentive.
All of your reasons are just socialism is bad. Like, you're literally like, no, it's socialism.
No, and also
socialism
that free
is bad.
market
Okay,
capitalism is
plenty of
moving
countries-
more
And then he says the inverse of it. Your argument is that socialism is bad. No. Another argument is that capitalism is really good. Like, okay, dude. You got me.
It's so stupid. But like, people think like, oh, got him. Like, that's it, dude. Owned. Wrecked, dude. Silly liberal.
Yeah.
Like, what are multiple? Give me more than one reason why socialism is bad. Well, socialism is bad because socialism is not good.
Or yeah, it's not capitalism. Yeah.
The Western civilization is one of the greatest experiments in human history. That the life expectancy has gone nearly double in the last
You
years.
do realize
That
you
global
repeat
poverty
the
has
same talking point, right? Like, I understand that the technological
less true
advances
just
are
because I repeated
inevitable,
repetition
and it
is all
will.
the memory, and I hope
Dude, he's fucking going so hard.
I want to get up and fucking. I want to get up and pick. I want to pick up the moderator and start beating him with the moderator. Like, that's what I. At this point, I mean, I'm laughing because it's so fucking silly. But watching it over and over again, now I'm getting so much angrier than I was at the debate, because like, he just keeps saying whatever the fuck he wants, never addresses any of my points, and just keeps fucking repeating the same bullshit fucking agitative propaganda on the conservative side, on the capitalist side, nonstop. It's insane.
I understand that across the board, due to exponential growth and also due to technological advances,
Also the Jews. That's not what I said.
publicly and privately funded research all around the world that we are in a better state. I fully understand that, and I fully agree with that. Only one side is arguing that it is all just magical free market principles, and just like only one side here is arguing that an entire nation is crippled because they decided to adopt Marxist principles, when plenty of other countries have are successful social democracies, or at the very least have a robust economy and also more social spending, where citizens are happy and they don't have to be living in fear that their bosses, if they fire them on a whim, that they'll die.
Well, let's bring it back to Mexico then. Why is it the most murderous, hopeless?
Yep, bring it back to a talking point that I'm comfortable with.
Boom!
Yeah, every
Fucking motherfucking cocksucking piece of shit. I love this one, dude. When he's like, fucking, what about Democratic mayors? It's like, what the fuck are you talking about, dude? We're fucking talking about socialized medicine, and you fucking turn around and you fucking ask a question about murderous cities and their Democratic mayors. I want to fucking kill him, dude.
Whoa! In a video game, calm down.
I meant in a video
Yeah.
game setting. I want to own him in a video game setting.
Okay.
Oh Jesus!
Okay.
In a video game.
Yeah.
Fuck. In a debate, I want to kill him in a debate
There you
in
go.
Minecraft.
There you go.
It's
Yeah,
so-
there you go.
Ah, fuck. It's just so. It's just so soul sucking to fucking talk with these vulturous monsters, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god! And I knew what he was doing. Like, I knew what he was doing the entire fucking time, and I kept calling him out on it. But it doesn't matter. He's just steamrolling over it, and the moderator never steps in. Look.
What does that have to do with anything? Yeah, okay, yeah, they're bad. What do you want me to say? Okay, sure.
Because
If
your
someone's
very
bad-
policies are put on trial in Philadelphia and Chicago.
Yeah, you know,
and
like
Oakland,
Rahm Emanuel, the big
Portland,
socialist,
Seattle,
who said
Milwaukee.
Chicago needed socialized medicine, and that's why there's going to be
Chicago's
dumb
already,
argument is this.
Chicago's already
Like, what the fuck? What the fuck is this argument?
universal will get you support.
Oh,
They're
so you're saying they premeditatedly are because they're
Okay, so like, oh my god, this hurts the most, dude. These are the best questions you ask. You should have asked them like 15 times in a row. Like, tell me what socialist policy is being enacted in Chicago that makes people fucking kill each other. I would love to hear this answer. Like, oh fuck, you should have hammered these so much harder.
I know.
Like, literally 15 times in a row, you could have asked these questions. It would look so bad. I don't know.
Today, can you answer the question though? Why is it that?
And then now he's trying to make you
every
answer.
time-
Now he's trying to make you answer a question.
Some of those Democrats are bad. What do you want me to say?
Maybe the ideas are bad, Hasan. Maybe the
What are the ideas? Like, do you really?
ideas are
But
high
they're
tax.
not.
It's just so silly.
And then one at a time. Don't let him gish out. High tax. Like, how many times, like, a gangbanger, like, goes to the fucking bank and he's like, oh, fuck, did you see, like, the federal funds rate today? Like, gotta go fucking shoot somebody. Like, what the fuck kind of, like, what is this causal chain of violence for, like, how do we get from high taxes to gun violence? Please, fucking show me this.
Oh, it's so stupid.
Yeah.
And people are clapping, dude. People were clapping. It was so demoralizing that people were just, yeah, he's right. High taxes are the responsible for all this.
Yeah.
Or he said like, you know, socialist policies like fucking like UBI. We glanced over that where he was like, socialist policies. Like Chicago's trying to implement UBI. I was like, oh yeah, like they're. There's violence in the streets of Chicago because they premeditatively fucking decided to implement UBI. So good. So good. Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. Conservatives are so fucking silly. Ugh.
Shit.
Which is what? The fact that he doesn't allow school choice, the fact that he cracks down on the voucher system in Chicago, the fact that Chicago has the highest property taxes in the country, the fact that Chicago has instituted income tax. These are all quote unquote progressive ideas. Chicago is more bankrupt.
Are you against all
hopeless.
taxation? Can we just get this out of the way?
No, I think we should have lower tax. Thanks to Donald Trump, we have the lowest tax rate in 60
me.
years.
Give me a number, because like I never understand this. Because always like I love deregulation, lowering taxes. Like just making these declarative statements might sound great because the tangible impact of it is not necessarily immediate, especially when it comes to tax cuts. But we see the consequences 20 years, 30 years, 40 years down the line.
Look, another thing that I'm doing here, like I'm moving to different avenues here, and I'm actually owning him in different avenues. But
Kind of,
I
but
think,
again,
like,
to really make it feel like an ownership, that sounds good.
Yeah.
To really make it feel like you own him, you gotta hold his feet. Don't let him pivot, because pivots are seen as wins. Because he never, in this entire conversation, he will never concede a single point to you, no matter how right or wrong you are, because he constantly pivots to the next point over and over and over again.
Yeah. And then I brought him. I bring him up to the other point that he wants to pivot to, and then I fucking slap him around there, and then he pivots again, and then I slap him around a little bit. But they're light slaps. They're never like, or they're never like
admits
actual.
he's wrong on anything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like the erosion of the middle class in America. These are a consequence of Ronald Reagan era tax policies. This is crazy. All of our schools are failing, Charlie. We have
Because of Democrat alliance.
Oh, come yeah, Democrats like the ones in Oklahoma, right? That's where many.
So you support school choice, Hasan? By the way, Sweden has school choice.
Yes, absolutely.
Notice.
Yes.
Firstly, fuck, this is a factual point. Firstly, school choice in Sweden, that voucher system failed fucking horribly, okay? That is a universally
know
banned
that.
system. Yeah, I know, but we've looked at it on stream before, because somebody's brought this argument to me. School choice, voucher system in Sweden, failed fucking horribly. Firstly. Secondly, notice how we just sent you down another dialogue path that he's prepared for. He didn't respond or engage with your point there, right? Like, all of those Democrats in fucking Alabama, like, those are like, really? That's where your go-to for why the education system is failing? Like, yeah. Or the fact that, like, all of these other countries that you don't want us to be like, that outscore us on education, that you would argue are more left-leaning or whatever, like, how do you explain that, right? Like, his point is just, this is such a feels argument. There is no fact whatsoever in any of the arguments he's making. If we go and we look up America on the education indexes, and we rank like 25th or whatever, all of these other countries that are horrible fucking SOCDEM or socialist or whatever the fuck you want to call them countries, Finland, Sweden, Norway, all of these other countries that outrank us like in every conceivable metric, like, are all using systems that are far more socialized than what we're using today. Like, how do you account for that, you know?
I know. The school choice one was bad. It wasn't like one I was prepared for at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, obviously, I think desegregating schools is very important. Like, not desegregating in the legal sense, but like allowing people to go to whatever public school they want to in the same state, I think could be one successful method. I'm not necessarily too certain. I'm not too certain about it. I know that the most important, my most important perspective there is that we need to allocate funds or at least like
Sure.
We need to fund the education system.
So real
That's
quick,
first and foremost.
the argument against letting people choose schools is that wealthier people tend to have more mobility, and what you're going to end up there, you're going to basically make it so that like if you have a shitty school, like all the wealthy people are going to go to the good school and leave everybody else fucked. So like
but
for
that
instance,
already happens too right now,
well,
even
but that's
without
because,
school choice with districting, right?
That's because of the way we fund our schools. So for example, I live in a city, Omaha, Nebraska, right? Is my city state. When I want my kid to go to a good school, what I do, because I'm wealthy, I just move to the wealthiest district and then put him in that public school. So now everybody that lives in the poorer district doesn't get my tax money. Schools are funded by property taxes. So guess what? If you live in a wealthy district with huge houses, you've got more tax money going towards your school. If I go to like the schools in like North Omaha, these schools are fucking shit. Their gyms are leaky. Their education is garbage. Their textbooks are shit. My kid goes to a school where in fucking kindergarten, I get updates every day from class because they all have fucking iPads. Like every day they're uploading shit to their fucking families, like on their fucking, like, they're kindergartners and they get this shit, right? Just because our district has so much more money. No, well, it's insane though. The disparity in my own city between a poor district and a rich district. And the only reason I can choose to send my school to a different district is because I've got the money to move somewhere else. Somebody less fortunate than me doesn't. So they're just fucked. And not only are they fucked, but their kids are fucked, right? Like you're already fucked right out the gate because of how much money your parents make, not through any fault of your own. Like that's insane to me, dude.
Yeah. No. We definitely agree on that, which is why I think you're a suck dem, but
well, no, I am. But sock dem is wait. Social Democrat. Yeah, no, it's way different. It's way different than a Democrat, socialist, or socialist. Like sock dem.
I know. I understand.
Yeah, okay, just making
no,
sure.
because you were like before. You were like, "Oh, am I a neoliberal?"
Well, I don't know if neoliberal and sock dem are necessarily exclusionary. I get so many emails back and forth from people that hate and love neoliberalism.
No, because neoliberalism has like a more hawkish perspective, and neoliberalism fails to acknowledge the failures of free market.
You say that, but like I've already got 7 neoliberals that, as you say that, are typing emails me right now like, no, neoliberals totally acknowledge the failures of capitalism to some extent. Neoliberalism is actually intelligent capitalism. So I mean, like I don't have like a strong stance one way or another, but there are neoliberals that seem okay to me, and then there are neoliberals that seem crazy to me, and both of these sides like constantly fight with one another. So it's like, yeah, I don't know.
Well, I think school vouchers is like a good distinguisher between neoliberal sock dems. I think like social democrats would probably err on the side of more public funding for schools versus neoliberals err on the side of no, we should have voucher schools. I mean, charter schools and voucher program.
Oh, okay.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, possibly.
So it's more so like government interference to help private enterprise is like the neoliberal position versus government interference to help the poor is more so the social democrats position, because the social democrat is more focused on like eroding capitalism as best as it possibly could, but while still maintaining like choice or whatever they assume that like socialism would not be able to provide. You know what I mean?
Sure, maybe, yeah.
Anyway, whatever. But I mean, neoliberals love getting owned on. So don't call yourself a neoliberal.
Sure.
But yeah. So
segregate the schools. I actually don't support schools. Like, it's so ridiculous. School choice is a solution that can allow poor families to go to a better school. There's Democrat politicians and teacher unions that are preventing.
So, like, this is something where, like, if you're more familiar with it, like, that is bullshit. When people like him or Dave Rubin say shit like so here's a couple argument. Dave Rubin will say something like, abortion should be relegated to the states. Like, okay, well, what if my state makes abortion legal and I want to get an abortion? Well, go to a different state. Poor people don't always have the opportunity to do that. Now, it's cool that you are so insanely privileged, you can't even comprehend the idea that transportation is an issue to some people because you've never thought about it. It is an unquestioned...
Yeah, no, it's the meme. It's the meme. It's like, just move.
Yeah,
like,
not everybody has the opportunity to do that. That's such a bullshit privileged argument. Like, yeah, maybe you've always had access to transportation. Not everybody does. Not everybody can drive their kid 45 minutes away to the other end of the fucking city before working, one of 2 jobs that they have to work to provide for their fucking family. Like, that's not an option that everybody has.
I know. Well, I mean, why don't they just move, though, Destiny? I don't understand.
Yeah.
Just get rich, dude.
Yeah.
Just get rich. Oh, fuck.
I'm trying to come to a conclusion with you about obvious problems that we have.
Big mistake.
But you are literally just regurgitating talking points back at me without necessarily listening to anything I'm saying.
If you would have said this like an hour ago and kept saying it, it would have been so good because that's all he's done for this entire fucking conversation.
Yeah, this entire time. Like, this entire fucking debate.
One thing I said. You go, do you hate choice? What does that have to do with what I'm saying? I didn't say you hate choice. I said, are you for school choice? I said, do you hate choice?
Like, and then he doesn't hear my perspective. He doesn't hear anything that I say. He's so well trained not to hear what I say, because I'm Sub Gobbler says Hasan's tone here is bad. He's noticeably angry. Yeah, it's fucking. We're 32 minutes in. He hasn't answered a single fucking question of mine. It's just making me fucking frustrated at this point. I keep asking a question, and then he keeps asking back another question while also framing me as though I'm like
interrupting him
Charlie's
constantly and shit.
Yeah, interrupting me constantly, asking me a question, and then immediately cutting me out. I am calling him out on it. If he does that, call him out on it is what you're saying, Sub Gobbler. But while I'm calling him out on it, you're also saying that, well, you're frustrated and you shouldn't have said that, because that's precisely what I'm doing currently.
School choice.
Yeah, you hate school choice.
You
Sure.
support school choice.
It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous question because you.
No, it's actually Florida implemented school choice from 25th.
No, I already said it. I think
the second education, school choice works and it helps the least.
You're doing it again.
Which I know
You're
you care
literally
about.
nonstop.
You've
without
been
voice.
saying facts. Facts bother you, Hasan? Because evidence bothers
Does facts bother you? Do facts bother you, Hasan?
Wait.
Numbers bother you?
No. Charlie, let's get back to reality for just a brief moment, okay?
I am using
Let's
numbers.
leave the conservative sphere for a second and get back to reality. You make false.
Why is he laughing? Like, why? Fucking this moderator is such a shit. Oh my god, I shouldn't say this. He's great. Steve, you're a great guy. You mean well. I wish you would like every now and then fucking turn around and be like, hey, Charlie, like maybe shut the fuck up and let Hasan finish his fucking talking point.
Yeah, so real quick, just so you understand, right? What they want here are like YouTube views and excitement and activity. So a moderator is never going to step in to actually like politely moderate to make sure the debate happens, because all they want is like YouTube clicks and shit. Like they want this to be like like lit as fuck, right? That's all they care about. So don't ever expect a moderator to have your back in a conversation like this. They won't. That's not what they're there for.
Unless it's like Baked Alaska in that fucking stream that you did, in which point he's like also trying to dunk on you with the gun stuff.
Wait, did I have this guy? Was he in that debate?
What?
Was this
Baked
guy?
Alaska was moderating. Baked Alaska was moderating the.
Yeah, no, I remember.
Debate.
I just didn't know if your moderator was in that debate. Gotcha. Yeah, that debate was.
No, level 99 Kappa. I'm not saying save me, moderator. Fuck you. I'm saying like do a good job so that at least it's like a normal conversation. Yeah, it's not a debate. We're just like yelling at one another at this point.
Assertions nonstop. Like, for example, the fact that Democratic policies are the reason why Oklahoma's school system has failed, when there's literally school in certain districts, there's schools for 4 days. Like, what are you talking about? It's a consequence of underfunding these school systems, and that is inherently anti-socialist. If liberals are doing it, then they're also anti-socialist, and therefore they are wrong as well. And that's something that I want to talk about here. Look, this is why I came in and said, right now.
This is the point where I try to fucking reach like some compromise or reach across the aisle, and I like try to get like some of the fucking
big mistake
swine, some of the swine to fucking take a deep breath and go, oh wait, maybe we should do, maybe he is right. Maybe we should listen. Never will it ever happen.
The biggest problem, from my perspective, is the fact that we don't look at socialism as if it's something that could potentially help us. But because of years and years of propaganda, and also very, very talented mouthpieces like Charlie here, and I will admit, very good at disseminating conservative agenda. Okay, because of that, and because of the lack of supposedly inside of our liberal institutions, the lack of education surrounding Marxist theory only at the highest levels, that people genuinely assume that socialism is a bad thing and not necessarily something that can help us, something that can save us. These are popular policies, you guys. You guys are advocating against your own best interest. You're advocating against your own. When you talk about free market principles, you're essentially saying, look, it's fine if private companies can do whatever they want, because private corporations are essentially privatizing tyranny, okay? They are unelectable, they are unaccountable, and this mythological free market understanding
use some evidence.
hasn't...
Use some evidence. We can.
I mean, look around, dude. I already gave you...
I look around and I see a lot of... Great. Go try.
Yeah, that was a good one for him. God damn.
You think that's a good point?
It's not a good point, but rhetorically, it's good. Yeah.
It's so silly. It's like an insane thing to say. I look around and I see a blue sky, and that's because America is great.
I mean,
and like people.
Have you seen the Family Guy episode where Lois is in front of the audience and she's like 9/11? I mean, like, shit fucking works, dude.
It's fucking nuts. I couldn't believe it at that point. People were like, yeah, he said Trump. And it's just like, it's just fucking crazy.
I use very good. Okay, so for example,
yeah, I was like, oh, okay. Like that evidence has nothing to do with the conversation that we were talking about. But I guess it's like, it doesn't matter.
Chicago has not had a Republican mayor since 31. Evidence. Atlanta's not had a
Stop looking at this from partisan perspective. I don't care about the Democratic Party.
Here's the point: is that your ideas of
your failure to see that I'm not. I also don't like liberals.
I allowed you to get to your diet.
Actually, perfect transition to the next topic here.
Hey, we have a moderator.
And then he like dunks on the moderator. I'm so mad. These are the points where I started losing. Like, these are the points where I lost control a little bit because like he finally started getting to me. Like as soon as he got to me and I admitted, I was like, dude, stop! You gotta stop fucking asking me questions every time I ask you a question. Like that's when I started losing. So entertaining.
Second of all, you guys are very talented because you on nearly all the topics I wanted to touch. Third, you've touched on actually what you ended on here is an interesting theme that actually cuts political development. And that is that young people across the board are extremely skeptical. They are skeptical of both the Democratic plurality of millennials today identify independent. So I want to get your take on this because I think it has a huge impact on the policy choices we decide. And I heard it from both of you, when you mentioned Democratic policies, Hasan would say that I'm not a Democrat and I do even criticize a lot of liberals, and vice versa.
Dude, even his
let me
his fucking questions suck. Like,
actually start with Hasan on this. For the record, just before we even get started, I didn't say I'm not a Democrat. I said I criticize Democrats because I'm not a partisan. Okay? If someone's policy choices, for example, like school voucher systems and whatnot, are inherently bad from a morality perspective, I don't agree with that. I'm going to criticize it. That's all I was saying. Right, but I don't have to defend it.
here, this is a good part where he like gets triggered a little bit, but
Democratic Party, and I certainly will not Republican. That's all I wanted to point out. I will still probably vote Democrat in the end of the day because I believe and that's why I will vote Democrat, and I'll tell people that as well. So let me ask. Did you see the proletariat? Are you
like you can't be fucking mad at like it's just so obvious, dude. Reaching for this is so fucking. He's like reaching to get like crowd support because I use the word
socialism
proletariat.
is bad, and everything related to any words having to do with that are all bad. Yeah.
Are you triggered by a word? Like, what do you mean? So okay, it's proletariat, an inherently bad word, guy. It means the working class. Yeah, I got that. Just ask how that worked out in Stalinist Russia. Fighting the working class.
Another zinger. Yeah.
Yeah, like that was China or Vietnam or Cuba, or Zimbabwe, or 100 other.
There's back into the talking points.
What?
Back into the talking points.
Same talking point over and over again.
Yeah.
You understand the difference between Stalinism and Leninism and Marxist theory in general? There are different variations.
You should. He can't answer that. You should have actually made him answer. He wouldn't have been able to. Guaranteed, he would not have been able to.
But then I talk about the differences. Instead, I try to teach, which is stupid.
Yeah.
And it's really disgusting. Instead, sit down and understand what the hell I'm talking about. I don't care about state assertion of power, okay? I don't care about authoritarianism. Obviously, I'm not an authoritarian. I don't like our current almost proto-fascist government right now. All right. Well, okay. Can I say, go ahead. So here's something, just so the audience, I don't trust the government. Therefore, why make the...
Oh, this fucking flat logic is so good. He's just gonna... Why?
Hassan says make the government accountable, and he wants to make government bigger. He says, the government is... This is Hassan. The government is largely bought... I'm literally doing it. This is Hassan right now. Do you think
he's so fucking... Oh, my God.
Intelligent? Can I summarize what you're saying? Okay, go ahead. He agreed that lobbyists have too much access to the government. You want to make that government bigger, stronger, more powerful. I want to make that government smaller and more accountable to the citizens. That's a huge difference between conservatives and progressives. I love that, look, are we going to have an actual intelligent conversation surrounding this? Because more government doesn't necessarily always mean more bad government. It's not like I'm advocating for corruption here. Actually, as a matter of fact, if you want to talk about corruption, let's talk about lobbying. Let's talk about how money is speech, like how we fund politicians. Let's talk about the fact that politicians spend 70% of their time raising funds for their next campaign. I don't like that system. I advocate against it. You want to reform campaign finance laws? And give me specific examples of how you want to do that. Because Foster Freeze, one of your donors, is very happy. Yeah, and I'm sure.
Oh, come on. That's so good.
Yeah.
That's so fucking good, dude.
But you got to make him respond to it. Don't let him pivot, which is what he's about to do. So.
Teacher unions are going to be pretty upset when you start talking about putting caps on Citizens United.
I don't give a fuck about Democratic teachers unions, dude. Are you kidding me? Delete the I'm talking about ending Citizens United, like reversing the Citizens United decision by any means necessary. I understand that will impact labor unions as well in a negative way. That's fine. Like, I'm fine. I don't want any of these institutions to lobby the government directly and pay to enact the favorable legislation. The reason why I don't want that is because I know that system is inherently not balanced, that corporations are always going to have more power. They're always going to bring in not only like pay for certain things to happen, but also bring in their own like lobbyists to also then take on positions of power in appointed positions within governance. Like, I get that. Like, but Charlie will now advocate for a ridiculous perspective that he has, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, it's not that ridiculous. A lot of even liberal from a freedom of speech perspective on this as a good way to reform our current laws.
Benefit from Citizens United.
I don't care what
Democrat
they think.
paper
It's
you
me.
get to
I'm
the
talking to
biggest
you right now.
beneficiaries.
There are plenty of libertarians who feel
Hillary Clinton
the same
outspent
way.
Trump 2-1. So don't get the idea that somehow.
This is a bullshit point. Hillary Clinton might have outspent Trump 2-1, but that's not what matters. What matters is how much media coverage you got. Trump got a lot of media coverage that has been valued by a lot of different companies and the billions and billions of dollars that he didn't spend money for. The idea here, or I shouldn't say billions, probably hundreds of, or probably like on the scale of millions or tens of millions, not billions. But like Trump got a fuck ton of free media coverage even if he didn't pay for it. So this is a bullshit deflection here.
It's not only is it a bullshit deflection. One, like I've obviously railed against Hillary, like campaign finance laws in general, and how like she took advantage of that. And regardless of all that, like in this instance, like when you're sitting there, it is extremely difficult to fucking cut him off.
Yeah.
And hit him back with like because he's already going. He's already gone off the. He's already gone off the rails. He's already fucking doing the Gish Gallop where he's like talking about completely unrelated shit. Like Hillary Clinton's campaign financing doesn't have anything to do with someone like myself who has already criticized Hillary Clinton plenty from that perspective.
Yeah. Hold on one second.
The problem here is like I can't keep talking over him. Okay, that's my issue because then it's just not a conversation. It's just like two fucking dipshits yelling at one another. So I have to sit back, wait, and snipe out like a perfect fucking moment where he's catching his breath and attack one of his redundant points. And that's what I tried to do, and that's what I did the entire time. But I don't know what the most effective way of like shutting him down is. Anything short of getting up and like threatening him physically to shut the fuck up. You know what I mean?
Republicans and only. Yeah, finish. Hasan.
You know me,
Hasan,
notoriously not anti-Hillary. Yeah.
Go back to Caesar.
Okay, but like, dude, you can't paint like Democrats do this, Republicans do this. Ask me what my position is, and I will gladly tell you.
I will
like,
tell you
I'm
my
giving
position
that same
on
benefit.
campaign finance reform. No more dark money.
Specifically.
24-hour reporting period. Unlimited contributions.
Unlimited contributions?
Yes.
Are you out of your mind?
Okay, so let me ask you a question.
Let
Let me ask you a question. The Young Turks Network.
Yeah.
Would you say that it's more liberal or it's more conservative?
It's absolutely more liberal,
Okay,
dude.
so when you talk, you're influencing an election.
You think it's
Should
the
that
same?
be regulated?
You think us?
Consider political speech.
No. You think
I should turn around and be like, in that instance, if I were to do what he's doing, what about? Like, do you think?
Okay,
that
wait, hold on.
turning...
I'm sorry. I'm back. My kid was downstairs for a second. Okay, I'm here.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
He said like, yeah, my bad. By the way, if you want to leave at any moment, like, it's totally fine. I've been
no, I'm good. He just had
taking up so much time.
Question.
But yeah, he was like, it's unlimited.
contributions?
Yes.
Are you out of your mind?
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. The Young Turks Network.
Yeah.
Would you say that it's more liberal or it's more conservative?
It's absolutely more liberal,
Okay,
dude.
so when you talk, you're influencing an election.
You think it's
Should
the
that
same?
be regulated?
You think us?
Because that could be considered political speech.
No. You think
You see where that can get really
you
dangerous?
think that? Hold on. Let me just understand your line of reasoning here. Do you really think that Pfizer's spending like $500,000 on a campaign so that we don't have to regulate drug prices? That's the same as me, a person who very outspokenly criticizes both parties, talking about it from a leftist perspective with almost zero actual representatives to support. That's the same to you? What an insane,
Okay, so
what an
every
insane
speech is
analogy.
first.
You
Well,
have to be a little-
I don't think like that's the other thing. I think capacity to distinguish between like speech and currency. Like the fact that we've like legalized bribery doesn't like, and we legally interpret it now as currency doesn't necessarily mean that that's the case. And we need to do everything we can to effectively regulate this and not necessarily open up the funds so that, you know, open up the floodgates so that companies can directly fucking finance as much as they possibly can. Just because this was the ideal place for a call of action. Yeah, it really was. It really was. I should have fucking done a call to action here.
What do you mean by call to action? What call to action for what?
Well, someone was saying like this is something that the majority of Americans hate. They hate this. This is something that causes so much political inaction. This is part of the reason why people inherently distrust government. This is part of the reason why legislation doesn't pass that favors the many but favors the few instead.
Gotcha.
We can only fight, and the problem is we can only fight against this by joining forces or some fucking bullshit.
Sure,
Like,
there's
people
a nonpartisan issue. It's kind of like socialized healthcare. Actually, the majority of Americans, even Republicans, are in favor of expanded Medicaid. It's like stuff like that.
Yeah.
All speech has some form of currency.
You have to have a
Whether a
you have to
celebrity
exercise-
endorses a politician or whether a political action group endorses a candidate. So if your position,
Yeah,
that
there's a
let me
difference.
finish. Allow me to finish. That money is speech, therefore money represents value. All speech must therefore be regulated. That when Lady Gaga,
You're trying to
endorses
apply
Hillary Clinton,
flat
you must
logic to
endorse
something that is.
Yeah, I didn't do a good job of like demolishing his perspective. Where I was like, you're trying to apply flat logic to something that we can like completely distinguish among. Like, I could just turn around and be like, do you think Lady Gaga personally saying I like Hillary Clinton is the same as Pfizer? As Pfizer like directly donating to a campaign? And then if he says yes, then do you think that that's okay that Pfizer is like donating this kind of money? And he says yes. I guess like turn around and be like, you want to regulate speech then, or I don't know. Like something like that. Like, why do you want to regulate speech if you're such a free speech advocate? But I guess he's not. I don't know. I don't know how to argue against this point. To be honest,
The Citizens United shit is really fucking hard. This is a really hard argument from both.
I know. I've listened to so many fucking like intellectuals debate this. Like even people like I think Glenn Greenwald is like pro Citizens United.
Yeah,
Right? Like,
at the moment, like
smart
I'm,
journalist.
yeah, the moment I'm pro Citizens United because I don't see another way unless you. But if you're a true lefty, if you're like an anti-liberal, it's pretty easy to say, well, no, like fuck free speech, like this isn't important in society. But if you're a liberal, which again the vast majority of Americans and even Western people, I think in general, are the vast majority are still liberal. You're gonna have a really hard time just tossing free speech as a concept.
Yeah, I know. Well, free speech is the way we understand it in America is inherently broken. That's my perspective. It's like flawed that we think we have the most absolutist like perspective on freedom of speech when we obviously don't. And there's like plenty of limitations. So if we can institute limitations on like inciting violence and whatnot, why can't we institute limitations on freedom of speech in the form of regulating campaign financing in an effort to conduct like serious in an effort to find common ground and bring about serious campaign reform, the campaign financing reform that you yourself just admitted earlier that you agree with. Don't try to back into a corner and like try to say like, oh, there's no such thing as like you're either a free speech absolutist or not. You see what I'm saying? I think that's a fairly good argument to make.
Sure, yeah.
If only I fucking made it there on the spot.
So it's insane. I mean, so 24-hour reporting periods and no more dark transparency.
Yeah, you give it 2 bones and then you take away everything with a
If a
crazy
corporation
unlimited-
wants to participate in an election, 24-hour reporting period. Here's where you and I will agree. Why do lobbyists have so much power? Because government is so powerful.
That's
how we can grow government and make government better as we grow it. There's zero evidence ever to suggest that.
So this is a really dumb argument. So again, he's talking about rent-seeking behavior here. So what you're saying is companies lobby the government for bad things, okay? And what he's saying, well, you think that companies lobby the government for bad things, right? Of course you agree with that. You say, well, then why don't we just make the government really small so they can't lobby it anymore? So rather than controlling the ability of companies to lobby to enact this rent-seeking behavior,
Let's just make that a direct.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the problem is we don't actually the reason why this is kind of a straw man argument is because we don't actually care about lobbying. Nobody really cares about lobbying. We care that lobbying is used as a tool to achieve ends that are really bad, right? That lobbying is something that people do because they're usually trying to get around something. Well, if we get rid of the hurdles that they're trying to get around, well now we don't actually care about the lobbying. You've just given them everything they've wanted by removing what they would have to lobby to get there. Like, it doesn't make any sense. It's kind of like saying it's like saying you don't want people to be able to jump hurdles in order to get over to you and murder you, right? Like, let's say there's a guy at the end of the football field and somebody places a hurdle, in front of them, and the murderer has to jump over the hurdle to go kill the guy. You're like, okay, well, you don't want these companies to be able to jump these hurdles to kill you, right? It's like, yeah. It's like, okay, well, let's get rid of the hurdle. Wait, what? The fuck? That doesn't make any fucking sense. Like, it's such a stupid way of looking at things.
Yeah. Well, Charlie Kirk technically, effectively, is a lobbyist in some respects. I guess maybe not.
Sure.
Someone was asking Kirk is a lobbyist, right? Well, yeah. To suggest that, okay.
We have too many federal bureaucracies.
Hold on. I'm asking you because I genuinely want to understand your perspective. So you threw out a statement where you said there's zero evidence that more government is better. What does that mean?
Can you show me one time in 50 years when American
program agency?
Yes.
Wait. Hold on. Wait. What did he just say?
He said more government is. He said more government is never good. Like,
and then, but what was his qualifier for that? Show me one time what.
The idea government and make government better as we grow it. There's zero evidence ever to suggest that.
The problem that he's giving here is that his metric for what is good is his metric for what is good is like whether or not it wastes money or something. Like, we don't measure anything that way. We don't measure companies that way, right? Like, large companies can start to waste money as well. Anybody that's worked for a fucking large company knows that the bigger you get, the more bureaucratic shit. It's so funny that people act like bureaucracy only applies to fucking government. That's hilariously fucking stupid. Firstly, secondly, I mean, like, if you want to point to a successful expansion of a government program, how about the ACA, right? The ACA's goal.
No, that's what I did. No, that's like here, watch.
Sure.
Bureaucracies. Hold on. Look, I'm asking you because I genuinely want to understand your perspective. Okay, so you threw out a statement where you said there's zero evidence that more government is better. What does that mean?
Can you show me one time in 50 years when America?
So he said in the last 50 years, in an effort to like stop me from saying FDR, which is why everyone.
Oh, because the New Deal
shit.
Yeah.
No, but well, fuck it. You already nailed it. There are plenty of instances where more government has been better. For example, the ACA, as you mentioned, or OSHA, the EPA, the fucking Medicare expansions. Social Security. There are plenty of instances where more government has been rightfully better, that things that he's taking for granted and things that he would take away if possible, which is something what I said here actually.
Mm-hmm.
Can you give me one piece of evidence where an American program grew and it got more efficient and it did a better job at delivering value to the citizens? One.
Medicare is a pretty good.
$80 billion a year in documented Medicare waste.
He was like waiting for me to say
Medicare.
Yeah,
he was. So like, again, like, oh, fuck, you got to be ready for these. When he says $80 billion a year in documented medical waste, that's not our measure for whether or not a program is good. Firstly, what are your comparable industries and how much do they waste? Are you going to tell me that every single private company doesn't waste money? What is your, like, so $80 billion, that's a big number compared to what? What is Medicaid's budget? Like, aren't these on the level, our federal non-discretionary spending, isn't this on the level of like fucking trillions of dollars? Like, is $80 billion even a significant waste? It sounds like a big number that's nice to throw out. Firstly. Secondly, we don't measure the success of a program by its waste. What if we had a program that wasted $80 billion a year, but it cured 100% of cancer? That's a non sequitur. Whether or not the program wastes money isn't a measure of its success or not. And then two, you have to compare it to the waste of other programs that are comparable. What if it wastes $80 billion, but in the private sector, they waste $500 billion, right? This is such a fucking stupid assertion. It doesn't prove his argument. Even if it was true, it wouldn't logically follow for his conclusion. Ugh.
Yeah, well, I don't even remember. That was a lot better than that, I'm pretty sure, but let's see. Oh, well, I argued a similar position.
Sure.
Did, but not as eloquently, I guess, where I was like,
one.
Medicare is a pretty good.
$80 billion a year in documented Medicare waste.
Wait, so you think 11 million people
a year
now being covered? The fact that 26.
By the way, here's the thing.
Wait, hold on.
Look at how, as soon as you started to answer, look at how he pivots again, right?
yeah.
Who wants to cut Social Security, dude? Like, we're having this conversation as though we don't live in the same reality.
Also, keep in mind, this guy cried at you multiple times earlier for interrupting him, and he interrupts you nonstop. But
dude, yeah, no, I told you, like, someone counted, I think, that he interrupted me, which makes it's crazy when you think about it, because it's a 56-minute fucking debate. But I believe it. He's never let me let out more than 5 to 10 seconds of speech before cutting me off.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's fucking nuts, dude.
Who's always aching to give tax cuts to the wealthy and corporations?
He's always aching to grow government. He's always aching to spend more money that you don't have. He's always aching to reverse the Trump tax cut.
Look, listen.
So, like, look.
No. Hold on. Let me finish my point.
Is that we both?
Again, I gave ground again.
Yeah.
I don't know. I should have just been like, listen here, diaper bitch. You better sit the fuck down and listen to what I have to say, because we've heard your same exact talking points over and over again for the past 40 minutes, okay? For the past fucking 40 minutes, you've been saying the same exact talking points. Now shut the fuck up and hear my perspective. And I didn't do that, and that's a problem. I was being too nice. I should have gotten a microphone as well. I should have fucking been.
Wait, so how can they hear
more...
you? You really don't have a mic, or how? Do you have a clip on your?
No, I have a lapel.
Yeah,
Gotcha. So like, if I put it closer to my mouth, I'm like, hurt myself a little bit better.
Mm-hmm.
One of us want to make that government smaller and more accountable to.
No, dude.
That's me. He wants to get more money and more power to government.
Make the government accountable. You're the one who benefits from the government being corrupt, because then you can turn around and say, no, we don't need this government.
This whole idea of accountability is so stupid. Like, we can hold the government accountable because we vote on people in government. I can't hold a private company accountable, right? If anything, conservatives are starting to learn
You're coming
this.
to my conclusion.
If anything, conservatives, here, you want the fucking silver fucking bullet killer for the conservative hypocrisy? They always talk about unregulated industry, free market will solve everything. Look at how much they're fucking crying now that they're getting banned off of Facebook and Twitter. What's so bad about that? Didn't you say the free market would step in? Go fucking sign up to Gab. Go fucking post on Vote, right? The free market is going to provide a solution to this. Why do you want the government to come in and tell Facebook and Twitter that they can't ban people for their political views? I thought that was their First Amendment rights. You've always defended large companies, you know, they're not too big to fail. Like, why is there a problem now? Like, I would always throw this back in their face. It's such a stupid fucking point.
That's a good one. But then it's like, then we pivot down to like a First Amendment argument.
Sure.
I guess I would have to like hold a point like over and over and over again, and it would be redundant kind of. But here at this point, like he's dropped me down. I'm going to say the same exact thing that you said. I think there's a powerful line that I made here, but
enact feudalist policies upon the same people who are cheering right now for free market enterprise as though that is going to save them. It is insane to me that people still think that this current broken system that we live under, okay, where wages have remained stagnant for the past 50, 60 years, while productivity has increased, which is, by the way, that's wage exploitation, just for those of you who don't understand that concept, but that everything is totally fine. And then you turn around and you say the stock market's great. Okay, the stock market is great. But the stock market, who owns the stock market?
interrupt me, I'll interrupt them. It's like, what a spoiled, my daddy is rich, so I need to win this fucking crybaby, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. Hey, I wasn't sure if I saw it mentioned, but Ben Shapiro TV is watching this, says Naja. No, that's not a real account. That's just like a random person. That's not like an actual real Ben Shapiro TV. Like, that's just like a rando account.
Wait, where do you read that at?
Oh, yeah, because
No, like, it's like one of the people that follows me.
Wait, where are they typing this at?
Oh, my moderator. Yeah, I am real, said Ben Shapiro TV. Yeah, he's not like it's not real Ben Shapiro.
Oh, I see it, never mind.
Listen, the stock market, look, Republicans all talk about the stock market. You mentioned it in your introduction. Stock market's doing well, consumer confidence is up. Okay, dude. Well, the 84% of the stock.
By the way, this talking point's for you as well, because I hear.
You hear what?
Some of the stuff that I've seen you talk about. You never mentioned this, but
never mentioned what?
Or maybe you do. I don't know. Did you hear what I said?
I lost my substance.
No, I can't. It cuts off
Sad
sometimes.
face.
What are you saying?
Over Russell, jiggle monkey.
You mentioned it in your introduction. Stock market's doing well, consumer confidence up. Okay, dude. Well, the 84% of the stock market is owned by the top 10% of wealth. Like, when the stock market's doing well, it's not doing well for you. It's just doing well for those guys. But you can be certain.
Like, it's doing well for you by comparison, necessarily doing. Oh my god, my like 401. You can make the argument that
your
like
Discord is cutting out a lot. I keep like losing things you're saying. Wait, say that again.
What?
Your Discord keeps cutting out. Like your sound keeps cutting out. Can you say that again?
Oh really? Oh shit! I said the stock market is doing well is not a good metric for this. Like even though you could say like, oh well, all my 401s are like tied to the stock market or whatever, it doesn't matter in the end of the day. Because of the high-low threshold or something. Oh, I don't know.
Oh yeah,
well,
because the average American doesn't hold a large amount of securities. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the point I was making.
Course,
I was like 10% of the 84% of the stock market is owned by 10%, top 10% of wealth.
I had a guy, whoever that youngest hedge fund guy is. What the fuck is his name?
William Legate?
No, he's the guy that tail ends all of fucking Trump's tweets. He's like the youngest hedge fund person ever. Fuck, if someone in chat knows his name. Oh, it's like Jacob.
Oh, Jacob Wall. Yeah. Oh, he's so fucking stupid. Yeah. Don't tell me you talked to him.
I debated that guy, and one of the first things that he talked about, because I kept asking him, like, how is Trump helping the middle-class average American? He's like, well, he brought down the capital gains rates. Like, oh, you mean those things that kick in at, like, $500,000 of income? That's helping the average American? Like, yeah. People will bring up, like, this point, or, like, point to, like, the stock market increases. Like, okay, like, stock market increases doesn't necessarily point to big gains made by the average American. The average American, you know, if I walk down the fucking street, isn't going to be holding, you know, like, millions of dollars of fucking stocks, and that appreciation isn't helping them necessarily. Yeah, that's absolutely true.
Yeah, it's so silly.
Mm-hmm.
It's not doing well, it won't be good for you. Absolutely not. No, sir. Because everything is taken away from the workers.
This is where I get a little bit more, like, this is where...
Like, people always come up to me and tell me, hey, Hasan, why do you want to take away my earnings? I told them, I'm not trying to take away your earnings. I'm trying to make sure your bosses give back what is rightfully yours. These are your earnings. You work for them, okay? And it is very obvious that corporations are not magnanimously going to, anytime soon, give you back those wages. So we have to implement regulation. We have to implement certain policies. This could be UBI. I don't really like it that much, but this could potentially be taxes on the wealthy and corporations.
Like, there are many different ways to do it. Or this could be regulating the wages in some way, or allowing unions to exist in countries. I can't believe you're booing this, man.
Like, people started booing when I said you allowing like to exist in industries, and he had to like silence them because they were like fucking booing at me for unions, dude.
Yeah.
These people are so dumb, man. It like, dude, look, I think you and I differ in this perspective, but like I still want to believe the best in people. Like I always,
I left that road a long time ago, but
no, like so I'm always like, oh man, come on, just like listen to what I have to say, please, for a fucking moment. You know what I mean? I'm like, just if you were to listen to the sounds instead of the sounds coming out of my mouth, if you were to listen to what I'm actually saying, because I'm using specific language tailored towards you to understand what I'm talking about, that I'm like looking out for you. And it hurts it fucking hurts me to my core when these swine are just, like I said, like in a almost Pavlovian way, or like reacting to my statements and the way that they're reacting to Charlie Kirk's. It's so sad. It makes me so fucking sad.
Yeah,
dude.
I agree.
I usually why I do what I do.
Yeah, I usually get like
mean?
real mean, and I'll start to throw this back. Like I'd be like, dude, like you can sit here and lobby for whatever the fuck you want. At the end of the day, like it's a win for me. Like any tax cut that Trump does is going to benefit the fuck out of me way the fuck more than it is some white trash redneck fucking dude in Alabama. Like, dude, like these corporate tax reductions and shit, I've got a fucking S corp to funnel my money through. I can make way more fucking money off of anything Trump does than anything you fucking do. Like with your fucking W-2 40K a year job, like he's not helping you, dog. He's helping people like me. If you want to sit here and fucking champion, you know, my fucking income, I guess knock yourself out. But at the end of the day, you're only fucking yourself. None of this shit is going to hurt somebody wealthy. None of this shit is going to hurt somebody that can afford to send their kid to any school. They can afford to go to any hospital that they want to. They can always afford to deal with it, right? You're only fucking yourself at the end of the day. But yeah, it's very, very strange to have arguments with somebody, you know, that like is making like $35K a year, that's sitting there clapping for the fact that now, you know, like the business, you know, pass through income tax just got lowered for somebody like me. Like, okay, dude.
Yeah, I know. It's like the amount of people who benefit, the actual number of people who benefited from like abolishing or repealing the estate tax is actually 5,000. Only 5,000 people were paying estate taxes in this country, because the amount of money that you need to have in order to pay back the government, you know, a certain percentage of your wealth after you die is so fucking high that it was only the 5,000 people, and it also brought in a tremendous amount of income, even with all of the loopholes that they've built into that system, so that they make sure that, you know, your wealth gets transferred to your children who absolutely don't deserve it, because they're fucking dipshit fail sons like Wyatt Koch, which is a video you should check out if you haven't seen it. You would love that. But it just, I don't know, it fucking hurts my soul when I see these people argue against their own best interests. It really does.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Has been. Look, your parents have benefited from this. Your parents benefited.
Like, I'm genuinely sad here.
You want some more numbers?
He's like, I don't care what you just said about unions. Let's talk about numbers that will make.
Yeah.
In American history, wages have gone up 3.8% in the last 18 months. Hispanic unemployment is the lowest.
Oh, back into the fucking talking book.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. Black unemployment that's been falling for 8 years. Hispanic unemployment that's been falling for 8 years. Yeah. But all of a sudden now, like, if you're so happy about all these numbers now, you're happy about the stock market posting all-time highs. Why didn't you say anything in 2013, in 2014, in 2015, in 2016? You're happy about unemployment being lower and lower and lower. Why didn't you say anything from 27 onward when it was constantly falling? You're happy about, like, yeah, right, all of these numbers. Why do they only matter now under Trump? Like, because you realize that this has been a trend that's been happening for the last 10 fucking years. Like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Yeah.
Yeah, no, for sure. Well, I wouldn't even get into the Trump hypocrisy. As you can see, I usually don't even like err on the side of like, I don't like the hypocrisy arguments as much. They're really good. They're really good for like all the clickbaity shit I do. I use that to like draw in people. But like right now, I don't want to even use that where I'm like, I could immediately launch a conquest against his fucking talking points instead of that. As far as like the median wage, which I do here.
Mm-hmm.
I gave you 60 years. I gave you a 60-year window, and you said the last 3 months have been 3% better.
Like my point here is like, we talked about wages remaining stagnant for the last 60 years as productivity increased, as profits increased, and then you turned around and fucking said, oh, the last 18 months our wages have increased by 3%. Is that enough? Like, that's the question I have there. But he's of course like talking about unemployment for the black people. Like, it's just which, by the way, again, another argument that is easy there is unemployment is not a consequential statistic to bring up when we're talking about this, because of the gig economy, because the wages being depressed. You can't like say, oh well, unemployment is at extremely low percentages, when there's still people who are millions of people are underemployed and want better wages. So it's just my biggest problem is like, I'm not the best debater. I have better ideas. I know exactly what his talking points are, but it shows me again that I don't know what the fucking dirty tricks are. I'm not a dirty trickster. I need to be better at tricking. Yeah.
3.8% wage growth, $50,000 annual median income for Hispanic families, highest it's ever been in American history. 3.9 million people have gone off food stamps under this administration, 18 months, which is something that everybody should applaud. The workforce. We have more job openings than we have people to fill those jobs right now. 3.7% employment rate.
This is where I tried to troll. People got really mad at me again here.
Open our borders. Thank you.
Look at his reaction when I said, yes, this is why we should open our borders. Thank you. Look at his fucking face. He got big mad.
This is why we should need obviously there's more jobs available to people taking them. So we bring in more immigrants, right?
The big philosophical difference is that
why is he not answering that question?
For which question?
I said, if we have more jobs available right now, more job openings that are willing to take them, I said we should open our borders, or we should allow more immigrants to come to the country. If there's a
Oh yeah. Technically, their unemployment is probably too low, because I think it's like at 3-point-something%, and I think ideal unemployment is around like 5%. Yeah.
This is the face he made when I said that, and then did not respond at all. Which you phrase it odd though. Well, yeah, no. I don't think the reason why I said that is because I think he's lying. It doesn't matter. I do think that we should open our borders and whatnot, but like ultimately, I mean, that's besides the point in this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Large average tax cut. This is why we should need $2,800.
He keeps making the same points.
Bring in more immigrants, right? Big philosophical. Hasan says,
here's the big problem. You don't fucking listen to anything I'm saying and just keep going back to your fucking conservative talking points.
I don't want to take I don't have the right to tell anybody what to do with any of their money. That's the big difference, Hasan, is that you're trying to...
It's their money, Charlie. It's the workers' money. They are just taking away and accumulating the profits for themselves. I'm not even saying abolish all profits.
This is a Marxist argument, by the way.
Just because it's Marxist doesn't mean it's a bad idea. Stop being an idiot. God damn it. Like,
I called him an idiot, which means I self-owned. You know, I lost it.
I mean, like, so something that you have to be careful here, and I see a lot of lefties will do this, is you can't just take it for granted, your idea about wage exploitation. Like, a lot of people don't, I don't, for instance, inherently agree with that. Although I understand what you're saying, so I can follow your argument, but that's something that you have to specifically spell out. Because not a lot of people believe that employing somebody is by definition exploitative. So that's...
Oh, no. Well, I was talking about stagnant wages respect to productivity increases, right? Like, that's one form of like labor exploitation or wage exploitation. The other form of it I'm referring to here, obviously, is like the fact that we don't redistribute our profits in a redistribute our profits in a more equitable way. And like we could disagree on what percentage that should be, but like there are different forms of instituting that, right? Like, and I mentioned that earlier in the debate as well, where I was like, we could either tax the wealthy and corporations. That's one way of doing it. UBI is another way of like implementing some form of wealth redistribution, even though it's somewhat problematic because it could also be advocated here in America to like abolish all forms of like social safety nets and whatnot. Workers, yeah, as Gulsfer said here, workers create surplus. Ask him how much money does an empty factory make? Exactly. And it's such a fucking commie argument, but it is, you know. But that was my perspective, is that like without workers, these factories would not exist. And also in the future, when we have, because of technological advancements, like capitalism does not have an answer to artificial intelligence and automation. And that's my point here. That's my follow-up point to that as well.
Possibly, unless you push for things like UBI potentially, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, anyway. But.
Real quick, can you explain why we need unemployment? So my understanding is that some level of frictional unemployment is to be expected in society. So like I said, I think that it's supposed to be like around 5% or like 5.5% is I thought ideal unemployment. When it gets lower than that, you start to run into weird things where there aren't enough workers to fill jobs in a society, and that wages will start to rise quite a bit as companies are unable to like fill positions with new workers, and that stuff starts to get fucked up. That's my understanding of it. I could be wrong. I don't know like what the exact number is supposed to be there.
Unemployment is what companies need to have to build. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I got up to show someone the Thomas Piketty book that they recommended I read, because I have it, which is Capital in the 21st Century. So I didn't hear what you said, but people are saying you're right.
Oh, and I'm just someone in chat asked why unemployment is supposed to be higher than why low unemployment. So like right now, I think unemployment is at like 3.5 or 3.7%. That's probably too low. And it sounds strange to say because you might expect, oh, but we want 0% unemployment, but there's supposed to be some level of frictional unemployment. So frictional unemployment, I believe, is defined as like people that are between jobs, basically.
Switching jobs.
Yeah, stuff like that. That you want some level of that going on in an economy. Otherwise, your labor market will start to have a lot of bad impacts. Like bad things will happen. Like prices for labor will become like wildly distorted and shit if there aren't enough laborers in a society to work with. Yeah, okay, sorry.
Yeah, no, okay, I agree with that. Yeah. But all right, let's see what.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. So
I'm so glad you mentioned that. Uh-oh.
Implement socialized medicine. I didn't say that, like Venezuela.
Marxist. Tell you why. Oh, okay. The problem with Venezuela is the incentive structure. In a free market system, incentives. Everybody is incentive to create value, get a job, or take a risk and employ people. Marxist socialist system, you're incentivized to your political office, get as much power as you possibly can to try to extract.
Not true at all. Like, yeah, this is the main tenet of Das Kapital, Charlie. You're right. It's when it's like, hey, make sure you run and become a part of the Politburo. You're not conflating like different leftist theories here. It's fine. You're right.
Like, what about cooperatives? Like, I don't understand. There's multiple ways
to do that voluntarily. Go do it in the Amish. Go live in New York. America, we have people that live in cooperatives today. Don't tell me how to live my life. You can live your life however you want to.
It's just, look,
my friends, a distinction. It's impossible to live as a capitalist in a socialist country. You can live as a socialist.
So this is where I did turn on its head.
It's impossible to have capitalism without socialism. You could never implement capitalism without public roads, without the infrastructure.
This is what people get pissed off a lot on me on when I refer to all manner of like collective taxation and like public spending as like a socialist value, because technically inherently it wouldn't be in a fully capitalist system. It wouldn't be socialism is not public spending. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
people get mad at me for saying.
Yeah, that's what I said earlier. Right? If you conflate these people, especially lefties, will start to get really triggered, and liberals.
Yeah, they get fucking super mad and whatever.
I get super
it's not public spending. Yeah, it's not public spending. You're fucking wrong. Blah blah blah. Like it's just, to me, I understand it. Like I get it, but like for the sake of this argument, I think it's a good perspective to have. Especially because I do agree with it. Like military socialism is the worst instance of that. Yeah, I know. Which is why I try not to fucking use military as a form of socialism, or even like the police unions as a form of unions, or police as a form of socialism as well. I'm very careful not to fucking say that. But in the end of the day, the military does provide a lot of fucking publicly funded research, which we will get to, which I will use to fucking dunk on Charlie in 1 second.
Necessary to bring private industry. What the hell are you talking about? Okay, live in a socialist country. It won't be great. So if it's a fully socialist country, I don't think we've been able to figure that out yet. So I'm not even saying that a fully socialist country will be great. But you have never, ever lived in a fully capitalist country.
You pay tolls. Like you finish. Like don't let me finish my fucking point.
So if you use the highway, you pay for the highway. You pay a gas tax. So if you drive a car, you pay into the highway fund.
Yeah,
That's how it works.
You're right. Socialism is what you want it to be, and not what it actually is. You're right.
So this is what really fucking frustrates me about arguing when it comes to this sort of like, because he's never, up until this moment, he hasn't engaged me in the theoretical level at all. You know what I mean? Like he hasn't like, we haven't talked about theory at all. He just kind of like said, all right, fuck it. Let's leave, tolls are a tax. Yeah, tolls are pretty much a tax, dumbass, says Ari Espinosa. So, he hasn't engaged me in like a theoretical conversation until this moment. So as soon as we start talking about like a theory, he can't really like fall back into his own, like while we're having discourse around theory, he can't fucking turn around and be like, well, actually, 3.8% GDP growth. Like he can't fucking say that. So now he's like kind of stuck. So he's just like yelling over me and cutting me off a lot more than he did earlier.
Yeah.
You pay for gas. So if you drive a car,
Like,
you pay into the highway fund.
Yeah,
That's how it works. Society.
You're right. Socialism is what you want it to be, and not what it actually is. You're right.
A program that will not benefit you to send the money to someone else that is in a different socioeconomic circumstance. Free market capitalism is the greatest wealth creating engine.
oh, no, never mind. I was wrong.
In history, with more people out of poverty, and you are a beneficiary of the very system that you are bashing.
Because it's not free market capitalism. It's so stupid. When the last time we had free market capitalism or something close to it was leading up to the Great Depression, okay? There's no such thing as like we have a fully free market. Where is the fully free market? If you like a decentralized government, why don't you go live in Somalia? There's decentralized government there, all you want.
Well, so we are more capitalist than we are socialist.
Okay, whoa, he fucking ducks out. So this actually would have been the killer, is every time he lists countries that are socialist, if you could have like a list of like capitalist countries that are fucking up, it would be really capitalist. So like you pointing to Somalia there was a really good, he ducked it, of course.
Liberia is another one.
Yeah, being able to do that is actually like would be a really powerful way to argue this.
I hate it though, but that's the point. I fucking hate that. It's
I'm the same
intellectually
way.
dishonest, Destiny. I fucking hate it.
Yep, I'm the exact same way. This is why I don't do this shit. I just like to argue what I think is true. I don't like to do the persuasive speech. But if you want to be persuasive, which I mean, arguably, because you probably believe in dumb shit like morals and social responsibility, right? I think you have that belief.
Yes, I do.
Yeah. I don't give a fuck about any of that shit. But if you do, then you should be compelled to try to become a better rhetorical speaker. So your goal isn't to chase facts because these people don't care about it. Your goal is to be persuasive, right? Ideally. As shitty as it is. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I know. You're right. You're 100% right. Because obviously, in the outcome of this form of debating turns completely against me, where people are like, "Oh, well, I don't know. I don't know if Hasan really won that one, guys." You know what I mean? It's just like fucking, because like Charlie yelled a lot, and he kept saying like facts, or he kept saying like things that I sounded true, so like it's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the Somalia one's good. Yeah, people loved it. Like even my fans they love the Somalia jab.
Yeah.
Everywhere the free.
Also, you admit that capitalism and socialism coexist. So thank you for proving my.
So that's the other thing. Look.
Why don't you go live in Somalia? There's decentralized.
So as soon as I back him there, he then turns in this is the first time in 48 minutes where I've got him to admit that we live under a mixed economy. Okay.
Sure.
All of a sudden, it's not like which virtually invalidates every single fucking point that he's made up to this point. Every single one about free market economy and free market enterprise and those ideals have launched us into the technological advancements that we live under and blah blah blah, all this other shit.
Mm-hmm.
Government there, all you want.
Well, so we are more capitalist than we are socialists right now. And everywhere the free.
Also, you admit that capitalism and socialism coexist. So thank you for.
So like that's what I mean. Like it's just you can't fucking turn around and be like that's a you, but then also admit that you you can have socialism, like certain socialized institutions, or at least like socialism as a concept under a capitalist institution, which again, people get very upset at me for saying this because they want to say like, no, all of the faults are exclusively a consequence of capitalism and nothing else. And that, you can't have socialism under a capitalist system, and that we'll never be able to have like a fully socialist state or whatever I think is a fully socialist state under a capitalist structure. So yeah, this is something that people get mad at me about, but why is there a viewer in between them? Yeah. Is the moderator.
Proving my earlier point.
We have some. Yes, we have broken public schools, which you would attribute to socialist policies. We spend money that we don't have.
We need to spend
Government
more
is far
on
too
them.
big, far too powerful, far too controlling over our lives.
Dude,
we have a
stop trying to
$4.4 trillion.
It's an idea. It's an idea.
3 million people that work for the federal government. All of these are pseudo-socialist ideas, of which I categorically disagree with.
So you want to privatize the school system entirely?
Okay, localize the school
Answer
system.
my question.
Eliminate
Answer
the
my
Department of
question.
Education.
Do you want? What Freeze think about all that? I would like to know his perspective, because obviously his perspective.
I would love
is more important.
if you're so.
Hold on.
Just
You
use
wanna
that
talk about-
He's trying to attack my investors and donors.
So
See, you almost had him. But you couldn't get him to answer the question. Yeah.
What does Foster Freeze think about it?
Yeah, no, it's so frustrating. You should have do you want to privatize all schools? Like you should have held him to that. Yeah.
I know. I'm too much of a fucking pussy, dude. Sorry for.
Well,
all the
it's not a
female
pussy.
viewers
It's
who
just
get
like,
mad at that.
yeah, it's just, it feels uncomfortable. It feels unnatural. But they're relying on that unnatural feeling. Like, a guy's not really going to sit here and ask me the same question 7 times in a row, right? Like, because that's a really uncomfortable thing to do. But you have to do it. Yeah.
So fucking frustrating. Hold on, sorry. I was trying to write no ableism in the chat.
Well, technically, that's just sexism. But go ahead.
Helps create the modern internet as we know it.
Oh, this is so good. This is so fucking good, dude. I mean, I'm like hyping my own self, but wait, what did he say? Is it the...
By the way, what does Foster Freeze think about all that? I would like to know his perspective, because obviously his perspective.
I would love
I don't know why my...
He's trying to attack my investment donors, of which I'm happy. We have 35,000 donors spanned in all 50 states. We now have 15 million, and we are supported by some.
$15 million, dude. His fucking budget is $15 million.
He means wealthy billionaires who have stolen our money.
Oh, really? So when we get investment people that, for example, helped create the modern internet as we know it, or people that helped.
Oh, how was the modern internet created? Oh wait,
That was a really bad point for him to bring up. Yikes.
What a fucking dumb point that he just made, right?
Really bad point for him to bring up.
And then watch Diaper Boy fucking deflect. Watch.
Go. And another example of how publicly funded research is good, and we all benefit from it.
The most successful Silicon Valley socialists.
That's not what I'm saying at all.
Nope, but he's trying to reframe it to run you down another tree. Yeah.
Fuck you.
Sargon did this to me when I talked about how immigration. I think it was Sargon. It might have been Fuentes actually. But when I started talking about how immigration is generally seen as a net boon to the economy, and he's saying things like, "What? This is absolutely not true." And I was like, "Yeah, of course." Like some of the most or he's saying things like, like immigration actually destroys economies. Like really, because California is like the largest economy in the U.S. Like how can you possibly say that? And he's like, "Oh, so you're telling me that Silicon Valley is ran by immigrants?" It's like, wait,
oh,
what?
I remember that. Yeah.
No, I didn't say that at all. Like immigrants
but, like,
fill a lot of different jobs.
people
California's
are-
a huge economy. Yeah.
But now imagine if you're arguing with Sargon in front of like a, and they're also fucking honking like horny gooses in the background when he makes that dumbass argument. They're like, well, we're dumb enough to think that this is true because our fucking Lord and Savior is saying it. So we're just going to get fucking excited. I've never said that. I never, not for a moment said that.
No, absolutely not.
Oh, okay.
So did the most
we
successful
rely
Silicon
on
Valley companies invent
the
the
technology
internet?
sector.
Come on.
Like,
We
That's
rely
not
on
what I
free
said at
market.
all. That's not what I said at all.
No,
I'm
hold on,
talking about
internet
internet.
provider.
No, I said ISPs need socialism so that there is an.
see, he moved it again.
And now you're
That's not
arguing
what we were
different.
talking about.
Yeah.
He made his own point. I fucking nuked him on his own point.
But then
and
you
then he
didn't get
made
the
another
win.
deflection.
Yeah.
What?
You didn't get the win on it. It's like you ever play Pokemon?
I know. I know.
Have you ever
know.
played have you ever played Pokemon before? The Game Boy games?
Yes, Destiny.
Yeah.
You fucking think that I play no video
Well,
games?
I don't fucking
Tommy.
know. Okay, I don't know if you have video games in Turkey. Fuck. All right, no, I'm just kidding. But it's like what he's doing is like every time you get him down to like 20 HP, he swaps it out. And he throws in the next Pokemon, so you're not actually like knocking anything out, and you just keep letting him
I
do
know.
it. Yeah.
I know. It's so frustrating, dude. It's so fucking frustrating.
Yeah.
I'm gonna destroy him in November, dude. Oh my god.
I would
Oh my God.
given, especially, dude, Twitter is amazing. This, trust me. Like, you should really reach out to find a bunch of these conservative dudes to debate. Like, once you've started to go through like 5 or 10 of them, like, 90% of them are the exact same. You should get practice doing it because it will run into what will happen is you'll start to take Charlie's point. Well, he'll bring something up and you'll be like, oh, dude, like, I've done this particular argument 25 times before. Like, I would love to go down this road with you, and then you know exactly the tricks that he uses. You know exactly the counterpoints everything's going to bring up. Like, yeah, this type of like preparedness will make you like a very powerful interlocutor. Okay, interlocutor.
Yeah, I don't know what the word is, but like it's just it's getting me horny thinking about how I'm gonna scalp someone in a video game.
Yeah, in a video game.
In a video game of debate. Anyway.
Structure set in place so that they can come and
which
build
they-
their.
So, but I'm doing it. Like I'm doing this thing.
Where what? You cut off.
Point that so I turn around and I'm like, what?
Fuck,
These
your
two.
mic keeps
I'll
cutting
argue
off.
on the internet.
Oh
What?
yeah, you start. Yeah, you do get better towards the end of the debate, but we're so far into it now. Like yeah, yeah.
For every single year.
Okay,
So when
exactly. That's socialism.
Yes, but in order for them to operate, they have to pay into
Yes, but like he's admitting my and
Silly. No, we're not. There's one real definition that I'm trying to describe to you, and then there's another one where you're just like making up and picking and choosing whatever is capitalist because it benefits your talking point, and then claiming that
Western
the rest of everything is
civilization was
bad
created by free
because
market
of
capital.
What What? Ooh.
Every single fucking yikes,
Yeah,
dude.
yeah.
Yikes.
He's like Rubio,
every
dude.
single time.
Yeah.
It's like, but people think this fucking bot is like actually intelligent or
Yeah.
actually won the fucking conversation. I mean, no one really won. No one really thought he won the conversation, but it's just so fucking funny, dude.
I'm trying to explain this concept to you, but you refuse to understand. But I don't think it's because you can't understand it. I think it's because you refuse to understand because it doesn't fit your narrative.
My narrative's about freedom. My narrative.
Oh!
Fucking
What?
fucking
No. Watch
freedom,
me.
dude.
Watch me dunk now, though. He said freedom. This is a trigger word for me.
Freedom, opportunity for all.
Watch.
There's no freedom in a country.
The narrative I care is
There's no
that we
freedom
have
in a
global
country
poverty
that is privatized tyranny, Charlie. There is no freedom in a country that is privatized tyranny, where your bosses can do whatever they want and never even give you an example, and never even give you a reason for what.
Oh, fuck you. That's such a good point. I'm sorry, but that's a good ass point. I don't care that no one fucking clapped at that. It's so sad because I'm over there like making good ass goddamn fucking points and like no one is clapping for me. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, well.
I felt so demoralized at that point. I was just like, I'm done. I'm done with this fucking thing. Yeah, please clap. Exactly. I was fucking Jeb Bush out there. Oh.
Jabbing it up.
Describing. You just said I'm arguing for freedom. I'm telling you that like progress is important.
Let's
Progress
talk
towards
about
liberty
capitalism.
needs to
That
happen.
means you have private property rights, which means if somebody is
What the fuck? Well, this has nothing to do with the conversation we were.
judge, you adjudicate that. Okay, it's inherent in a free market system.
Is that the only thing that happens?
Abstract
What happens when the free market fails? What happens when there are natural barriers of entry and the government actually has to step in and subsidize? What happens? Like we have social, like
So the point that you're trying to make here, you can actually summarize in one powerful word, right? Like freedom doesn't matter without access. Okay, if I walk into a supermarket and I've got the freedom to purchase whatever I want, but every single grocery is $1 million, how much freedom do I actually have there? I would summarize like because you're making this argument essentially, but like a really easy way to say this is like freedom means nothing without access. If you've got the freedom to do whatever you want, but you don't really have access to any of it, at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, because it's not truly. It's not true freedom.
Yeah.
It's just
because really, if we want to be real, honestly, America probably has the best healthcare in the world, probably has the best education in the world, probably has the best of a lot of things in the world. But
if you can pay for it,
the problem is access. If you can't pay for it, what the fuck does it matter at the end of the day?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I made that about healthcare earlier about cancer research because but it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
For the wealthy, and we have some socialism for the very poor. Okay, what we need to do is bring that back and have socialism for everyone. For example, Medicare for all would be a good place to start.
Okay. So
there is no answer you can give me to what will happen when automation wipes out the labor force with artificial intelligence. Socialism, whether you like it or not, some variation of it already exists in our country, but some variation of that will make you deeply uncomfortable inevitably happen. So it's really silly.
The fact that he keeps cutting in here is very fucking aggravating.
My dad is wealthy is not an argument that you can make anymore, okay? So people are
I love that.
Yeah.
Stop the labor force with artificial intelligence.
I'm sorry.
Socialism, whether you like it or not, some variation of that already exists in our country, but some variation of that that will make you deeply uncomfortable will inevitably happen. So it's really silly. You can yell about the free market and how great it is, and also the free market's great because my dad is wealthy is not an argument that you can make anymore, okay? There are people that are suffering in the street.
So Hasan, why don't you give 95% of your money away and go live on a commune?
Do you really think that
This is the most fucking argument that he ever made.
Yeah.
The fucking why don't you give 95% of your fucking wealth? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Are you kidding? This is so stupid that it's hard to argue against, dude. It just fucking makes me lose hair follicles as I am hearing this argument. As it enters my fucking brain, it makes me go insane.
Yeah, and the only right response to this is, well, me giving 95% of my wealth doesn't fix anything. Like, what a stupid thing to bring up, right?
Yeah, which I was trying to make in a long-winded way, and then fucking Jen came in, and then he started screaming at him and whatever, and then.
Do you really think
Why not? Go live in because every single
this is as silly.
I'm glad that I fucking triggered him to a point where he was like losing his shit though, and then with Jenk screaming at him, he like made an absolute fool of himself because now people are memeing him nonstop.
Yeah.
No, this is the first time he let me do a full fucking talking point. So he thought like he was being really magnanimous, or he was being really giving. So he's just like, all right, I gave you the 5 minutes so you can say whatever you want, and really offended me. So, now I can fucking make some dumbass points.
When I practiced free market capitalist, I employed people, I took a risk. of business every single day. I practice what I preach. He wants other people to contribute to what he considers to be a good idea, what he considers will make the world a better place. Socialist, go do it, son. What's stopping you?
Okay, so here's why this is ridiculous. And the last here's why that conversation is absolutely preposterous. If I gave away the measly earnings that I have and gave away 95% of that, that wouldn't necessarily even push the needle. I will be very honest. It's really embarrassing, especially if my boss is sitting right there. I make $60,000 a year, okay? And that's a really good salary, but it's not like what Ted Cruz is talking about.
This is something where you could, like, when he asks you, how much do you make, Hasan? You go, $60,000 a year. And that's all you say, and it, like, completely sucks the wind out of his argument. Like, that would have been a really good, like, immediate one-line.
$60,000 a year. How about yourself?
That's it.
Now you reveal how much money you make.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, $60,000 a year. How about you? Well, I wouldn't ask him because he's gonna say he makes a lot, but he loves capitalism, whatever. But like for you to just respond with a period at the end, because do you understand what he was trying to get you to say there? What he thought your answer would be? That you kind of like subverted that. He thought that you made a lot of fucking money. He thought that you were.
Oh yeah, no, I know.
Yeah,
I know. He thought.
So for you to answer a contradiction to that, be like, I make $60,000 a year. Like,
yeah.
Oh shit! He'd be like, "Fuck!" Like he would start asking more questions. Like, "Oh, well, blah blah blah." He would have to go down another. Yeah.
Well, then he starts lying too. He's like, "Well, I made less than that." No, you don't, dude. Get the fuck out of here. Your company has 50. Your company that you own makes $15. Like you admitted, is getting $15 million in donations.
Mm-hmm.
$74,000 salary a year. It's not like we're gonna buy a second home anytime. But that's besides the point, okay? You're trying to attack me, which is ridiculous. Like, asking me what my salary is. Sure, I'll reveal it willingly. You brought it up.
Go like a socialist. Go like a
The point is
socialist.
larger. The point is larger than that, Charlie.
I live like a capitalist every day.
I live like a capitalist every single. Love that. Cenk was like, "How much do you make, Charlie?
Yeah,
How much do you make, Charlie?" But he's not even loud. Like he must have been looking for it in the crowd because like when he first was like fucking screaming, I saw him screaming, but I was like, it's not like enough to interrupt this conversation. But he knows like I'm gonna finish. It's the last point, and I need to finish it off. So he like got fucking real rowdy and decided to get real macho because he's got his fucking Yeezys on.
What do? I get dirty every single year. Hold on. What's my salary?
And then Jake got up and he's like fucking screaming. It's so funny.
Holy shit.
Take a seat. All right, take a seat. You're gonna take a seat over here.
What's my salary?
All right. Ridiculous. All right, behave, everyone. Jesus Christ. Okay.
I practice what I preach.
Charlie.
You do not practice what you preach.
Charlie. All right, hold on. Last point. I want to give him. Everyone.
Dude, look at the fucking MAGA background. Like as if they're gonna fucking throw hands. It's like, dude, come on. Like, look at these people in the back. Like the one was like waving her fucking hand and shit. Like as though she's gonna actually like do anything. Look at this.
All right, hold on. Last point. You don't want to give him the attention. Everyone,
35,000 donors. We are funded by the grassroots of this country. You can try to demagogue it all you want.
Funded by the grassroots of this country, our $15 million organization. I went up to I admittedly went up to GOP mega donors at the RNC and begged them to fucking pay me so that I could start my dark money super PAC for college elections. That's funded by the grassroots, dude. You can try to demagogue it all you want. Fucking it's just disgusting how well they can lie about this shit, dude.
Okay. Can I finish my point?
Less than the sun.
Hold on. Let me finish.
Less than Hasan's, not true.
We're having a reasonable discussion. We're here. We're talking. Let's talk something I want to, including those of the young who obviously don't pay me enough. So here's what I was trying to say. Okay, we like to make ourselves feel comfortable by like implementing certain environmental policies. For example, like the straw ban in California, which is largely ridiculous because it lowers 0.006% of the plastic in the ocean. This is just simply to make ourselves feel comfortable when 100 companies are responsible for 74% of the carbon emissions. Like, it's ridiculous to think that we are going to have positive change if I go out and I live in a state New York like collective. Obviously, I'm fighting so that everyone can at least see that I'm coming at this not from a partisan place, not from a partisan place at all, but from a place where I'm looking at our problems in this country and trying to find solutions that help every single American. Okay, perfect. So,
like, I'm being genuine. Like, that's genuinely my perspective. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, it's not. I hate that I was not very happy with Cenk screaming, but like now after just like, I don't know. That was what it was. Okay, this is it. That was the debate.
Do you know anything about his company?
So last year in our debate, I actually called him out because we, like, with a little bit of investigation, we found out that he was like, his goals were actually just to fucking. I know a lot about his company.
Well, because I was gonna say is like really funny. I don't know anything about his company, so I wouldn't be comfortable saying this because I don't know. But like, if you did know, it'd be really funny when he gets somebody who says like, "I live like a capitalist every day." It would have been funny, like, "Oh, really? You do? Do you provide healthcare to your workers?" Then something like that would have been like a really funny like zinger.
Well, it's technically not a. It's not a company. It's technically I think it's like a. I don't know what it is really. I don't know that much about a company, but like, so the things I can hit him on are like racial bias and all this stuff. And the real reason why TPUSA was like started even is like he admittedly because yeah, like he admits in like I think it was in like 2015 where he admitted like Are
you gonna watch Sam Cedar on Charlie or?
Yeah, it's happening soon. I gotta fucking actually like go pee and like quit this stream and then go.
Wait, are you like still down there? Or are you home or what?
No, I'm home right now, but like I can make it in time. Hopefully, I really have to fucking pee too.
Oh yeah, because you like live in the area. Fuck you.
Yeah, the last point I was gonna make is look like, so they were forced to drop out of campus elections after in University of Maryland, for example, after they caught violating spending rules and attempting to hide the help that they received from Turning Point. It also quoted Kirk in saying, "Fuck you, no, I don't want the latest." It also quoted Kirk saying in an appearance before a conservative political group that his group was investing a lot of time and money in student government elections. In the story, Kirk denied any wrongdoing and said it was completely ludicrous and ridiculous that there was some sort of secret plan. But a copy of a Turning Point brochure prepared for potential donors that I obtained provides a glimpse into the group's tactics. Okay, and like this like goes into detail about how they do it. But yeah, no, they are like absolutely. Cenk did nothing wrong. Is that what you're saying? Case? I don't think Cenk did anything wrong either. After further review, I'm not actually upset at him here. Destiny, I'm gonna send you this if you want to look at it. Like, this is what TPUSA does. But I don't think Cenk did anything wrong because he asked the same exact question that Charlie asked me. So if it was like that easy of a question to answer, then he shouldn't have any time. He shouldn't have a hard time answering that fucking question.
One thing, if it's possible to do this, and it sounds typical to me because I'm really bad at this, but I don't give a fuck. But if you do give a fuck, one thing that's really good is if you can make them appear to be angry while you're not. That looks really good on you because like the new brand of kind of like conservative fascism or whatever the fuck you want to call it, like they very much pride themselves on being these like cold, cool, collected guys, right? You look at like the Richard Spencer types, that's a big thing for them. So if you can maintain your cool throughout an entire conversation and start to rattle the other person, it actually makes them look really bad. That's again one of the reasons why like the Richard Spencer types like try really hard to always be cool, to always be chilled, always sound smart. Or Ben Shapiro, like avoiding getting emotional is like very big for these guys. So yeah, like if you would have been like super cool the whole time, or I mean you were for the most part, but like when Cenk like triggered the fuck out of that guy there, it actually looks bad on them because they're the ones that like,
oh no, of course it did. It totally did. That's why everyone's fucking making memes about him and like getting really upset at him and shit like that. Like there's no way you can fucking actually like look at that. Look at that entire debate. If that outcome didn't happen in the end, maybe they would look at the debate and go, well, you know, it was like kind of even ended or whatever. You did a good job and whatever, and Charlie did a good job on certain issues or whatever. But like with that in mind, it turns into, oh, he like absolutely got fucking destroyed. He lost his cool. Look at how triggered he is. Like what a fucking dummy. Conservatives are the real violent ones. Like there's so many different meme opportunities there, which is great. So ultimately, I think like it worked out really well. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
but,
yeah, for sure.
You know. Well, let's see what happens with fucking Sam Cedar in like half an hour. But in any case, all right, I gotta go. I have to pee so bad. I'm just gonna raid Destiny because you guys all have expressed how much you fucking love Destiny, and a lot of you probably came here from Destiny stream anyway. So that's what I'm gonna go do right now. No, seriously, like everyone originally was like, "Oh, Destiny's a suck dem, he sucks," blah. And like now, after this like 3-hour conversation, everyone's in love with you. They're like, "Oh my god, he's so great. He sounds so awesome."
Thanks, I try my hardest, buddy.
All right. I'm rating you right now. And by the way, thank you so much for the conversation. I thought you were dodging me for a while.
I saw your big message.
And
dude,
the reason
I suck at responding on Instagram. And you sent me like this message like, hey, here's what we're going to debate. And you sent me like 72 topics. Like, I can't respond.
The reason why I fucking even if I gave any grounds on that debate, the reason why Hasan Abi gave any fucking grounds on is because Destiny wouldn't help him out, dude. Because he was like, I'm a social democrat. I don't want to fucking help this libtard Marxist. Fuck him. That's why. Okay.
Oh, shit.
But
All right.
yeah, having said that, I'm gonna go raid him right now. And thank you so much, man.
Yeah, no problem. Good
I
luck,
look
buddy.
forward to more conversations, and let me know if you want to ever tag team someone. It sounds kind of gay, full homo, whatever.
Yeah, if you ever have if you ever contact me on like Discord, like I always respond to those messages, like 100%.
You didn't contact me. You didn't respond to my Discord either.
No, I do. I'm pretty sure that's a lie.
I know, it's fine. It's all good.
I'm 99% sure that is not true. Do not slander me, good sir. Okay, but yeah, if you if you message me on Discord, I will 100% respond. Okay, all right.
All right, perfect.
I'll see
all
you
right,
later.
peace, dude.
Yep.